last second recording session. Hey guys, it's been about a month. It's
Yeah, and I wasn't here for the last one, but I think it was because I was working.
yeah, you were working. Ann Arbor, I think,
I
was
think
in
this
it.
is your first on one of these because it's usually just me and Vex.
Yeah, like
I was on the gaming one, like the gaming awards one.
oh
Okay.
yeah, like every recording track turns to like blend together at this point. But
Yeah,
we've got a little bit of a resolution from something that I think was in the last episode. The Yuzu lawsuit. It did not amount to anything really, other than now Nintendo owns the domain and the developers have to pay a fine.
Yeah, most things typically get settled out of court, as I've learned over the years, and that's just what happened here. But what it did, though, was set an interesting precedent where people have decided, okay, we need to be way more careful about this emulation. Because after this happened, I mean, people are like, okay, well, one, definitely don't go on Patreon and try to monetize this.
yeah,
And two, like, I think there was another emulator, I think it started with an S. Uh, it got pulled from like GitHub, and not because Nintendo went after them, but I think the GitHub themselves didn't want any potential litigation action, so they just requested it to be removed. So now, like all the whole emulation scene is very, very scared of
yeah.
Nintendo, and at a
But
time when the Wii U and like 3DS stuff is gonna be pulled off like permanently, I think that's gonna happen very, very soon.
I
Um,
believe the Wii U is like completely shut down now. Because there was a
yeah,
bum rush for people to beat the final unbeaten Mario Maker
yeah, I
level.
just saw that this morning. Got beaten.
So like with that, like everything has technically been cleared on that.
Yeah, it's like okay, I just googled it up. It's like this week on the 27th. It's like 3DS is gonna close. So yeah,
which is which I've got to say, it's sad. It's sad to think that we're in that day where it's like the 3DS, DS, and all of that is closing.
Yeah, I
it is.
mean,
It is very sad.
I
And
support
mean,
of
these
the
emulations were the best way we had to preserve these because
yeah,
the companies aren't doing anything.
Yeah, and I mean, Nintendo could so easily, like, because I was able to get, like, before it closed down, the old Pokemon games on my DS. So I was able to get them on there. But it's like Nintendo could so easily, like, preserve games like that if they just transferred everything to the Switch eShops so that you can actually buy them on there.
yeah, I respect that they like supported it for close to a decade, which is longer than most systems get like proper support, like quality of life enhancements. They got like a lot of like the store being completely supported for a long time. But Nintendo is in a place where financially they could continue to have supported these servers and everything, even if like Nintendo servers are like the most archaic dog shit things on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Like even the Switch's online functionality is terrible compared to say like Sony's or Microsoft's, right? But
Yeah.
like they did support it for a while, so I'll give them credit there. Oh, what I don't like about Nintendo is they're consistent like going after, you know, A creators and B the fact that they just want to have like complete control over 25, 30-year-old systems that realistically where the fuck are you going to find a new inbox copy of say Mario Sunshine anymore, right?
Yeah, or a new or like a um reasonable buyable copy of say something like XD Gale of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but for
But
Nintendo, what it allows them to do by controlling the market is release things like the Mario Anniversary Collection. We got here's a
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
timed limited edition port of a game that we know everybody wants.
and you know what they so easily could do in this gap year of no Pokemon game. they'll probably do something like this. Give us like a Pokemon Legacy pack where you get like say red, blue, and yellow, gold, silver, and like all of that on one like Switch cartridge.
Yeah. Um, I really wish we would get that, but I don't think we'll get that. I think the closest we'll get to something like that is them being thrown onto like Switch Online,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
in of itself is just emulation. By the way,
Yes, it is.
it is a fucking stripped down emulator core, just
It
like
is.
every Sega like Master Collection, everything like that is like just pure emulation. By the way,
Yeah, but it. Oh, I was just gonna say, but it's funny that you said that about not profiting off the emulators. I think that's why the Pokemon quote unquote MMO, which is just basically emulation online for all the old Pokemon games. I think that's why Nintendo have not gone after them because they're not profiting off it.
you can buy
Yeah,
coins to
but you
buy
know they
hats and
would
shit
if they could.
though. Like, as someone who played it for like one stream with you guys, like it literally, I bought bunny ears in the middle of that stream. Like, they do technically profit off of it in that regard, but like they're not profiting off the sale of like
Yeah,
the software itself. They're profiting off of cosmetics. I think is how they get away with it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and which basically just fuels like the ability to maintain servers is all. Like they're not selling, splice code to the, hey, by the way, we're selling this ROM hack of this 20-year-old Pokemon game.
Which,
We're selling like cute little hats and like little boosters and shit to allow you to do, different things in game.
which speaking of Pokemon ROM hacks, have you played the be your own gym leader ROM hack?
Nope. Did not
No,
even know that was a thing.
there is a thing I literally just found out about it today, and I downloaded it myself. Where you can actually run your own gym, build up the town around it, and if you don't, you get fired.
Interesting. That seems unnecessarily stressful for a Pokemon game. We have gone full circle from wanting to just escape to like escape the grind of a 9 to 5 to having a literal Pokemon 9 to 5. What the hell?
Literally, that's what it is.
I question like the developers in some of this shit. Like, why do you make like there's one where you're trying to stop a time loop too that I saw on TikTok a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, why though? Like, why? We don't need Pokemon to be like Dark Souls, guys. We don't
Yes, we
need it.
do. We do,
We
thanks.
need it to be like stress free. Like give me the ability to just like live life with my Pokemon on an island instead of
Vex,
like
now that you've said that, they're gonna make Gen 10 be like Dark Souls.
and I won't fucking play it. I still haven't played through Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
There's no need. Like
Which speaking of Scarlet and Violet, they've just announced for the anime one of the the voice cast for the Elite Four for Paldea, and have you seen Larry, like the Elite Four member Larry, who's just
yeah.
like yeah,
Yeah.
he's his Japanese voice is Byakuya from Bleach, which I'm just there thinking like that is perfect casting right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it works.
It works. Like Byakuya is a great, character voice actor. So like,
Yeah,
why not?
but it's like Bianca is like the most stoic character ever, and then you have Larry who's like just looks like I am too old for this shit.
Yeah. I mean, how old is Byakuya technically? If we want to get into like Bleach lore.
I would say like about 200 years old.
So I mean, literally too old for this shit. um.
So, going back to our topic,
Yeah.
I am glad that there are services like Pretendo that I learned through Good Vibes Gaming that are still out there trying to preserve titles while Nintendo's still on like this hunt against emulators. Because like if Nintendo's not going to do it, someone has to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we lose a lot of gaming history.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because it's always going to be the case. Like, if the companies keep going after the emulators, then it's like, well, it's like when people say like, oh, you can't find this old TV show back in the day, but it's parodied. Yeah, don't bother with that. It's lost for history.
Well, I mean,
But it's like the whole point of life in general, of just like not just of just anything in life, is that you preserve it to see how far you've come.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, if you can't acquire it legally, 100% pirate it. I will always stand on that ground. There's also services like the Video Game History Foundation, a museum that do a lot of preservation stuff as well, and like Archive of Our Own, like archive.org, has at least did have, I don't know if they got the takedown notice as well. They did have like repositories of like old DOS ROMs and a bunch of other shit that was like past the statute of limitation slash copyright law side of things. But I know Nintendo was going after a lot of that stuff too, especially stuff that they were trying to remaster or renew like their trademarks on. So like when F-Zero 99 came out, like a lot of F-Zero ROMs just disappeared from the internet because of that. Which just, continues the scummy side of Nintendo, but there are dozens and dozens of websites that have the ability to get you what you want. If you dig deeply enough, right? Even like PS3 is getting, relatively well off in its simulation market, which is great for people who don't want to pay like $90 to $100 to hunt down some obscure ass title for the PS3, like I did with Folklore, But Nintendo has always done this shit, and they'll continue to do this shit, and it just fuels my hatred for Nintendo and why it's always ethical to pirate their shit. I mean, totally don't do that. Absolutely not. Please don't sue me, Nintendo. I literally cannot afford it. But like, let's add into that this also caused Citra to go down, which was a 3DS emulator as well, because it was also owned by the same people as Yuzu. And Citra, I do not believe was doing the like charge per Patreon method. Yeah, I
they
could be
probably
wrong.
got spooked enough that they pulled it down.
Yeah, they're like, well, just because they're shutting down one of our things, we're going to shut both down, kind of thing, is what I got the vibes of. Because they just didn't want to have to, deal with two potential lawsuits from Nintendo. So they were just like one and done. I will say that there are other Switch emulators out there that are trying to rise from the ashes of Yuzu. I don't know how good they are. And there are also, repositories online of the, final versions of Citra and Yuzu floating around there through like a Google Drive or GitHub or however you want to go about it. So if you still want to use it and you're familiar with it, you can find it, at least for now, until it gets takedown notice. Which might have already happened, and I just am unaware of it. But that's the unfortunate end of that era of, emulation. I did download Yuzu to try and play like Scarlet and Violet on stream at one point, and I couldn't even get it running. So, your mileage may vary with it, I guess. But outside of that, we've had a lot of other like interesting stuff, and I'm particularly curious about this one. Gravity Rush 2, not 1, is getting your remaster potentially for PC and PS5.
It's still in the rumor territory, just to be clear, because I think when I found this, no one had like a concrete source on it. It's just kind of in the rumor mill. But I want to bring it up because it's very weird that based on said rumor mill, that Gravity Rush 2 is coming, but not Gravity Rush 1.
Remember,
it's not like Final Fantasy where it's like these games are disconnected. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like remember they did announce a Gravity Rush movie project as well at that PS event. So maybe this was like drowning through the hype of that, because the Gravity Rush series is like a cult classic in its own right. Like the first one being on like the Vita, and one of the first to like really go heavily into the like touch controls and the tilt motion and all of that stuff, right? And they got a like short print remaster on the PS4. So, and then like finding that now it's like in the $120 range last I checked, just for a fucking PS4 game, because it was like such a short print. But Gravity Rush 2, like I bought that day one. I spent more time with it than I did Resident Evil 7, honestly. Just saying something.
Wow.
They came out at the same time. I love the style of this game. Like the cutesy anime ubu, but like with a dark, gritty story. I've always been a sucker for that kind of shit. I really wish they would make a third, but the studio that made it shut down, so I doubt it will ever happen.
Yeah. I feel like it's more possible to get Hard Life 3 than Gravity Rush 3.
I mean, well, one is still a functioning studio. They just, focus solely on the other side of things, which is fucking Steam.
But but you bring up the Gravity Rush movie, Vex, them talking about it, but then it's like how much of that is actually going to come to fruition? Because I don't know if you remember back in the day when there was supposed to be like a Halo film directed by Peter Jackson.
Instead, we got the dog shit series that is just a bastardization of everything lore wise. Yeah. I am totally not hate watching it. I swear I'm not hate watching it.
Sure, Vex.
I just want more than 2 good episodes out of the series. Like that's all. Like, you've spent literal millions of dollars bringing this to life, and there have been 2 good episodes in this entire fucking series. I really hope Fallout isn't like this. I really do. Because
I don't have the most hope based on things they've been saying.
You want to know, just to go for a slight tangent here, you want to know what I feel could make more video game movies or TV shows more successful? Is if you actually have people who actually have, the criteria for making this is that you actually have to play the game first.
See, I agree with the showrunners for Fallout on one thing. Pleasing the audience for the Fallout universe is universally impossible, because we don't even know what the fuck we want half the time. You have the old heads over there in one corner who
are like that.
You have the old heads over there in one corner who want nothing but top-down classical RPG shit, like the old Obsidian games. You have the people that just dick ride New Vegas into oblivion. I am one of those people. Play New Vegas.
No.
It will totally not make you trans, I swear. There definitely is a pipeline of, I play New Vegas and now I'm trans. And then there are the people who love like the Bethesda games, right? Like these are 3 totally different fan bases. And then there are the people that meme like, another settlement needs your help. Another settlement needs your... Shut up, Preston. Just shut up already.
Is it like Navi in Ocarina of Time where,
yes.
Hey, listen.
See, I spent more time shooting Preston Garvey in the face than I did killing Mirelurks, okay? And no, you can't kill him unless you put a mod in there, but it was just so satisfying to just blast his face with a mini nuke and kill yourself too at the same time. Because fucking hell, I was just at this same settlement, and now you're sending me back. And if I don't go quickly enough, the town starts hating you, and if the town starts hating you, you don't get the resources. And I fucking... That is a mechanic in video games that needs to die, like 100%. But like, yeah, I agree with the showrunners there, but I did see the clip you're talking about, Party Jams, and I'm hoping like it's the like in-universe equivalent of failing like a speech check, and not like the entire dialogue for that show, because God, that was rough.
Yeah. We'll see, I guess. I mean, I always feel like for like any kind of show, like hardcore fans will probably still get some kind of kick out of it just based on like the references or stuff they make. Like, for example, I'm kind of skipping around a bit here, but like recently, much more recently to the time of this video, Dragon's Dogma 2 came out. And at first, when I saw like all the scores were really good, I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. That motivates me to like finish up the first game and then maybe try the second one sometime. But then I saw the Steam reviews were bad, and I was expecting it just to be like a bad port. And part of it was optimization issues, but the other part was just all the business decisions that went into it. And yet somehow it's still like one of Capcom's best PC launches. So I
See,
think what I've learned from that is there's always like a fan base, like for a big enough IP that I feel like Fallout will have its audience.
yeah, I agree with you there. Like, I very much was looking forward to Dragon's Dogma 2. As a fan of the original game, I have bought that game 3 times and played through it twice. I've not finished like my PC version playthrough of it, but like because I was saving it for like close to like the sequels coming out, and then I got like it just became part of my eternal backlog. Who the fuck am I kidding here? Uh,
Yep,
but like
this happens.
I I I love and hate Capcom more and more every year because like I I realize like their optimization isn't always like 100% on launch, and part of it's because they want to fucking slap de nouveau on everything and be fucking stupid on that regard. But the other part of it is like, have we had like guys, have we literally had a Capcom launch, a single player launch that hasn't had some sort of microtransactions in the past like 5, 6 Capcom launches? Let's not kid ourselves here. Like you could buy all of the shop items technically in Resident Evil fucking 7. You could do the same for Resident Evil 8. You could do the same for like 2 make, 3 make, 4 make. Like all of these have had shit like that in them. Devil May Cry, you could buy souls. Like none of it discredits from the actual game itself because you can't get these items in the game through playing the fucking game. These are like things that if you just want to, bum rush through it because you have a corporate 9 to 5, you can have the option to like, well, I can spend like $20, get a bunch of upgrade tickets, upgrade all my gear in Resident Evil 4 make, and like go through and just one shot everything. Who cares? Like it's not technically hurting anything other than like your quality of the gameplay, right? But with Dragon's Dogma, I see a little bit more of like the pushback because this is a sprawling world, and the big marketing was like you can't fast travel, you have to actually walk through the world, right? And then here's like items that let you do exactly what the marketing said you can't do. So I guess maybe they were kind of pissed, like a lot of people were kind of pissed about stuff like that. But again, like, does it really hurt the experience unless you're going out of your way to pay the however much these items are? This is just like my thought process on that. And like I love the universe, I love the world. I'll eventually get to it. I just don't have time for another 100+ hour RPG, especially having just come off of Rebirth. I need like a cooldown.
Yeah, you 100 hours into an RPG, yeah, you kind of do need to cool down.
I spent 125 hours in Rebirth and I still haven't platinumed it, and I don't think I'll ever platinum it because I have no intention of playing through it on the hardest difficulty. Like I've gotten to the point where like I don't care about having a critical run in Kingdom Hearts 2. I don't care about like having like a fucking hard mode, crush my balls difficulty. I think that's why I've been hesitant to get like deeper into like the Soulsborns, is that I just don't have the patience or the time to deal with shit like that and to get good anymore. I just want to enjoy my story and then just go on to the next game.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's my thing. Since backlogs just keep growing, unless it's like a series that I'm already like heavily invested in or something, I can't see myself developing a whole new skill set for a different game and series. Because it's just like at that point the game is like a second job practically to like learn how to get good.
Exactly. Like the games are supposed to be fun. They're supposed to be like this escape from reality. And I go to my silly little RPGs to kind of escape the monotony of like my 9 to 5. And like I don't want to sit there and, try to beat the same boss for 25 hours.
Yeah, I kind of that's why I want to do one of these with like Red, because I know that for his play style, he prefers like really tough games like Celeste and whatnot, and
Oh,
so I
if he
think
prefers really tough games, just show him the final boss in Heart of Darkness.
I think he would literally commit seppuku live on stream if
Yeah.
I did
Oh,
that.
he would probably do that with that game because
Like
considering
I
it's
showed
like
him Dark Souls and he questioned reality.
but yeah, just show him like Heart of Darkness or the Oddworld games because of like just how
I think he'd
insanely brutal
have
they
like
are.
more fun with the Oddworld games because he likes platformers more. Like that seems
Yeah,
to be like more of his like gaming style. I agree with him like 100% on like and I'm going to get canceled for this, but like I have tried repeatedly to play through Horizon. Like it just is it's a beautiful game. It's a beautiful game. But it is a novel and it's dialogue. It is
yeah,
literally
true.
like just the intro alone. I think there were more words in that than your average Halo novel. And then to try and get through that barren ass open world in the first game is a struggle. It like there's shit to do, but it's so spread apart, and like the way the mission structure works, it just does not intrigue me at all. And I have
Yeah,
tried.
I also think it depends like what you're in the mood for when, because like I remember like when Digimon Survive came out, you know, a lot of people are like, okay, I was in for a tactical RPG with Digimon, which it is, but then it's also very predominantly a visual novel,
Right.
which, you know, a lot of people like weren't ready to start reading a book. But personally, I really liked it, but I also think I was definitely up for a more narrative heavy Digimon game, especially with the presentation it had with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm gonna say to all of those people who are like that, like if you like that, if you didn't like that about Digimon Survivor, but like that about say the Metal Gear Solid franchise, it's like what the hell? Because they're the definition of like reading a book.
I mean, more watching a
I,
movie than reading a book, in my opinion, especially like four and
I
five.
But
think with
yeah,
Metal Gear though, as I've just never been good at stealth games. Like I've tried a couple of like recommended stealth games, and it's just like I'm just really bad at this. Because even with Dishonored, I'm like I would rather just kill everything than
I
just like try to be patient, or like with Hitman where it's like I cannot. I there's like some cool things you can do if you're good at that game, but for me it's just like I don't even understand how I'm supposed to do all that.
I got decently good at Hitman for a while, but like I agree with you. I fucking did stealth runs in Dishonored, and I suck at stealth games like 100%. That's not my cup of tea either. I like with Metal Gear, I understand like the whole meme behind it. Like this is like you know allegory for like war and how it never really changes, but also funny politics and also kind of gay. But like there's something to be said about like there's a game for everyone, and then there are definitely games that are not for everyone.
oh,
uh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
like I
Which
like
is why
those
I
games
think
are
I can
mine.
respect that games like the Souls like games just
Hmm.
want to just be hard and for that audience. So I can respect that.
Hmm.
But I also find it weird that people are like, I don't want this game to accommodate others because it's just not meant for everyone. But then people will be like, I want hard mode for Pokemon. And it's like, what?
Like I wouldn't mind a
I
hard
feel like,
mode.
Like there is like yeah, I would say I'll agree with that. Like there needs to be a challenge mode for Pokemon. Like yeah, because you had the challenge mode for Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2, and that really needs to come back for like the new Pokemon games, but have it like optional at the beginning. Like okay, how do you want to play this game? Do you want to play it on the hardest setting?
Could you imagine
I
like a
mean, I think
four-year
I
old
could
playing that?
respect like having a difficult like post game, which is what, to my understanding, Pokemon does do. I haven't played the more recent games, but I've heard that's what they do.
It
But I don't think that it really needs to be like, okay, do you want extreme challenge Pokemon off the side?
well,
Because I
I
also
will
think
say,
that if you don't know how to do it, it's just not going to come across right.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
Sonic,
but
for example, had an extreme difficulty they added to their DLC, but it's basically just like one hit kill.
yeah, but with Pokemon, what I'm saying is like, okay, for like the more like for like someone like me who's like, okay, I want to play Pokemon, but I want to play it like, say you have at the beginning, instead of like having two Pokemon for the first gym with like at level 10, have it be like four Pokemon with like at level 18, something like that.
Wait, what? I'm confused now.
Like
Oh,
that.
you mean the gym leader, not
Yeah,
you? Okay,
yeah. I mean,
okay.
like that's what I mean for like the
I
chat
thought
for
you
like
were
the.
asking. It's like I need four
No,
Pokemon.
no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
Okay,
Like I
now I
want like
got you.
the challenge from like for like, okay, I'm an experienced Pokemon player. I want to go out. So like, okay, I want to fight the first gym. They have, I don't know, Bulbasaur who has like a leftovers item, something like that.
I mean, I can understand it, but I also feel like when people say it's like I want harder options for like the games that are designed for children that I still play, but not for the hardcore games that I also enjoy, it just sounds like they want games that'll accommodate them, not
Yeah.
necessarily everybody.
Yeah, but I want it to be like universal because it's like it's like with okay, I'm just going to use an example that we were using before we went live. Guild Wars 2, which I would say um it does manage to properly balance like, okay, you want to be a casual player and just play through the story and just explore the world, you can do that. But if you want like more challenging aspects about the game, here's some areas that you can go and challenge yourself in. So I kind of wanted that with Pokemon.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it, to be fair. What I will say is like how about a middle ground, right? Like every game has like both like an easy and a like a fuck my ass difficulty moving forward,
Yeah,
and like they're properly balanced, which is the part that like most developers that do this struggle with. Like Party James, you were mentioning like the like one hit kill mode. That's essentially like Dante Must Die and Devil May
yeah,
Cry. You get touched, you die, right? And I have seen one of my friends play through Dante Must Die, and it is a work of art. Like, I don't know how the fuck she does it, but she is so fucking good at that game that like not a single touch, like triple S's all across the board. I'm like, I'm doing good to get a single S on fucking Devil May Cry playing through it, and I consider myself decently good at the game. But I'm watching like triple S's hit everything, not take a single hit, beat like final bosses on that shit. I'm like, how? Um, but at the same time, like that is, you know, not a good balance in my opinion. There needs to be like a, hey, you can take a couple hits on this, but you also have to be decently skilled kind of thing is how I look at like the fuck my ass difficulty as I call it. But with like the easy mode, like I want you to be able to show me the mechanics of this game. Like, okay, teach me how to play this so I can play the harder difficulty if I so choose to. And I feel like most developers don't know how to do both, especially looking at From Software. Like they can do the like, hey, don't get hit too much, but once you get to a certain point in the game, it's like one hit you're dead if you're not properly, balanced. Like Elden Ring, you can get one hit tapped and you're done. And then you have to trance your whole fucking way back and, try to successfully dodge roll long enough to collect your shit and then finish the fight. And
Yeah. And I think it's because of that balancing that I would almost rather like game devs do what they think is best. Because yes, ideally, everyone every game should have some level of accommodation because I'm a huge proponent of accessibility, and maybe one day we'll have that discussion with Ann Arbor about that. But
Oh
I
boy.
think that it just based on skill set, like some devs are like really good at making like a hard game, others are just making like a really fun game, and just play to your strengths. Because if not every game has to be for everyone,
Yeah.
then you can just kind of just make whatever suits your skill set.
And some companies need to never touch games again, like Warner Brothers.
Well, yeah, that I mean that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Should we go on to that topic then?
Warner Brothers sees its future gaming strategy to evolve more live service, mobile, and free to play games rather than just launching a one and done console game. Wasn't the Hogwarts game, like, aside from the whole J.K. Rowling bit, wasn't Hogwarts Legacy like the top selling game last year?
Yes, it
It
was,
was.
and that that was all because people were trying to boycott the game.
I don't give a fuck if it was people trying to boycott them. I look at Warner Brothers as a company in general and see the most brain dead decisions a company can make. Like, they're shutting down Rooster Teeth, one of the oldest, like, new media companies on the planet. They're trying to shift all of their fucking gaming into like microtransaction, cesspools. After Suicide Squad Kill Justice League was like bombarded with review bombing and, people actually getting refunds for it because the game is so poorly optimized and so poorly made, that you're seeing for the second time in its history, Sony just fully refund, no questions asked, Suicide Squad. And the last time they did that was like the port for the PS4 of fucking Cyberpunk. And we're doing this.
Is it going to get to a point where Warner Brothers are just going to take all copies of the Suicide Squad game and just bury them in the desert? E.T.
You know what? Someday someone should do something like that. It's bad for the environment or whatever, but my God, that whole thing.
Can we just bury David Sazov with them? Like, live burial?
Because it's not just games that Warner Brothers are like screwing over. They are just like screwing over animation projects in general. And I remember seeing a post actually this morning of the day of recording where they were talking about like putting more investment into their Japan branch for anime stuff, because for those who don't know, they're making a Suicide Squad isekai with Wit Studios behind it, which looks really cool. But I remember that post this morning I saw, it's like, yeah, people are saying Western animation is not in danger, but look where all like the money seems to be going.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, like, because Ruby, just touching on like the whole Rooster Teeth side of things for a second, like Ruby had like a big proponent of its audiences over in Japan as well, like, and they had the Ice Queendom like alternate universe style anime that was there. I wonder if, like, because they were seeking outside investment to pick up like Ruby, Red versus Blue, Camp, all their animation stuff. I wonder if that's like kind of the push there as well. Because I would, as much as I've drifted away from like that fandom, I would like to see that story finish its its whole bit, right? Red versus Blue, obviously, like, this is the final season. It's already done, basically. I think this was the final season in Camp as well. So it would really just fall to like Ruby and Genlock. And say what you will about either of those franchises, I do believe like a story deserves an ending. That's why like stuff like the manga where like an author dies, like, it's a sad time, because like usually we don't get like a Berserk situation. It's like author dies, story dies, right?
Yeah, it's like today recently. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the series, but I remember seeing one series being cancelled because the author died.
Yeah, I saw Manga Morgana, or however you say their name, talked about it. Like High School of the Dead, for example, like there was a little bit of it, but like there wasn't enough to continue the series, right?
Yeah. And I could understand like the point from the manga side of things, like it's not going to be the same without like the actual author there. But at the same time, would you honestly 100% be satisfied with it just like with Berserk, like if it had ended where it ended with like the child
I
being
I feel like
spoilers, the child being revealed to be Griffith.
I feel like that would have been a decent ending point in some regard there. But like I do like that Studio Gaga is able to continue that. Oh, but like there's definitely like a, is this a natural endpoint, or do we need like one or two more chapters maybe would be the better way to handle that. But like
Yeah.
with like Warner Brothers, like every step since David Zaslav has taken over, like it's been like 15 steps back for that company, and I just question why this man is still in a position of power. Because this is going to kill Warner Brothers games, like 100%. Because we're in an era where like even the most basic microtransactions are getting pushed back, like we were talking about with Dragon's Dogma, right? A scroll to change your character's appearance. Cool. With Warner Brothers, like they're essentially the new EA, so they would probably charge like $10 to change the appearance of your character, right? Like we've went full circle from the horse armor meme. It literally is that, and I really do not want to see like more developers out of a job in an already overly competitive job market where we are seeing like people leave the industry and people change majors because they see like the shift in the industry, right? Like we might end up in an era of like the second video game crash because of stupid shit like this.
Yeah, or more than likely, we're like just gonna see a shift in the games industry because, like, while we're seeing so many layoffs, and I mean, we could have made a whole podcast just based on the layoffs themselves, frankly. The are portions of the industry that are still like fine because it's just so huge now compared to what it was back in the 80s. Like Nintendo, for example, like when I saw people discussing, it's like, okay, well, what's the best strategy to deal with things? People are like, well, you know what happened when Nintendo's Wii U, which was a total failure, was going under and they didn't lose too many employees? The CEOs just took a pay cut because that made sense. So, I mean, really what's killing off the industry right now is like a lot of corporate interest and like their business practices. So, if the industry wants to survive, it just needs to shift to either a more indie studios cropping up, like with Toys for Bob, which we'll probably talk about in a second, and or we see just these Japanese studios with better business practices just taking dominance.
Yeah, for example, could you have seen like a Bobby Kotick or uh like any of them just literally take a pay cut?
I really can't. And they would much rather like sell off the company, get their ship parachute, and go. Or if they don't get it, just run everything to the ground.
Yeah. And I see like more and more studios be like super greedy like that in like our side of things. Whereas like, as strangely enough, like Hoyoverse stuff, like it being like so insanely popular and actually like good to like the industry standards, like I could picture them if like their sales went down for their microtransactions, like them actually taking a pay cut because they have the business model of like, hey, people like our shit, but like the economy's also shit. So let's just take a pay cut for a couple of quarters and see where we're at then before we start laying people off, right? Like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
although they seem to be doing some different stuff in the gacha industry, like Shift Up, for example. Now that they have Stellar Blade coming out, they recently are shifting into being a publicly traded company, which has a lot of people a little concerned that now shareholders will make business decisions on what they produce. Which, if you've played any Shift Up games, then you kind of know that's a bad thing. So there is also the idea that a few of those companies maybe we could see them like get some pay cuts, but I also feel like those specific ones have like publishers who might not, because like Shift Up is owned by I think want to say Tencent. I think they do own them.
I do believe
Um,
so.
Yeah, and Tencent is a company that will make the worst business decisions and just like cut off and kill off anything they can, as we've discussed in previous podcasts.
Yeah, Tencent is like,
Than Japan, if I remember correctly. No, they're Chinese. I'm sorry.
yeah, they're
I think
just.
I just specified Japan specifically because I think their business practices, like their company loyalty, actually does sort of matter. While here, it's just kind of used to take advantage of people. Over there, it actually means something to be like, okay, we've been in this company long enough that the success of the company and the people who work here matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like with Tencent, like they're like the biggest. I think they're essentially like Embracer, right? They have so much stock in the fucking gaming industry too that it's crazy, and they have like specifically like a massive stock of like the gotcha side of things, or the FTP market anyway, right? Because they've scooped up a bunch of studios that do like gotcha games and like free to play, like battle royale style shit. But they also have like hands in a lot of other like bigger companies as well, because they're essentially like a massive firm that kind of puppeteers the industry, kind of, on like an Embracer level. So with them, they're kind of like a bit more shady, like you were saying. But there is one like massive win that we kind of need to talk about before you get to like Toys for Bob, because a lot of stuff has finally come out of that Apple lawsuit. And I feel like we're both on the same page here, Party Champs. I don't think Luke really has a say in this one.
No, because I'm not an Apple person.
I'm not really either, but I
No,
love.
because I don't. I'm gonna make a joke right now. It's a joke at Apple's expense. So,
I don't
incoming
think
awful joke.
anybody cares if you
Okay,
take a shot at Apple.
because I've read their terms and conditions, and I don't want to have my ass sewn to the butt cheeks of another person to become a human centipede.
I knew you were going with like the South Park meme, but I just let you roll with it.
But no,
I didn't. I'm glad you brought it up.
But no, I've never been in that. I've looked at like Apple Mac computer, and it's like it's just not my thing. So
I honestly might end
Apple
up.
products. The only reason I own them is just because I have been invested in the Apple ecosystem as a kid. But I will probably get out of it as I get older and more financially independent. But because my career path's a long one, so it'll be a little bit scintillant.
Yeah.
I've been happy. I've been happy with desktop Microsoft computers for my whole life, and that's not going to change.
See, like, I might end up shifting a little bit, like from my like business side of things. I might shift a little bit more back to Apple, as much as I hate it, simply because of like the ecosystem they have is like a lot easier on the business side of things. Because everything on that side of it, my life tends to be more Apple centric at this point, and I hate that I'm gonna have like two separate things, but it's whatever. Like, I'll relearn Apple. But like, Apple terminated Epic Games developer accounts for iOS at one point. Then like apparently they shifted back and like reinstated them because it was like a shady thing. But also like Apple's getting sued for being a monopoly. Like all of this happened within the span of like 4 days of each other.
Yeah.
And
so for some context, like the European Union, well, a lot of companies have been suing Apple, like Epic and Spotify, Microsoft, and basically it's just their way to try to get into the Apple ecosystem. But the big shift has been that governments are now getting involved. European Union recently like sued Apple to the point where they're like, okay, you guys need to start side loading apps the way everyone else does, more specifically Android, I guess. And because otherwise your closed off ecosystem, it just allows Apple to make like a crazy unfair amount of money because every purchase is through their store, through their wallet. And since people can't purchase things on their Apple products outside of things, Apple just has a monopoly. And I think that's the confusion that some people don't understand. Because when people are like, Apple has a monopoly, what does that mean? There are other non Apple products. Or how can Apple have a monopoly in their own store? And the answer is when you have a Microsoft PC, you can buy stuff all out of the Microsoft store. Like imagine if a world without we didn't have Steam or GOG and we had to purchase everything through the Microsoft
Oh
store for our
God, oh
games.
God, no, no.
Exactly.
That's not a
But
world I want to live in.
me neither. And this is coming from someone who still does you get some things from the Microsoft store, but it would be bad because it's bad competition. And you can say the same thing like with other devices, like even on like Android devices, besides the Android Google Play Store. Like if you have a Samsung device, you can also get like Samsung stores stuff, and I'm pretty sure every other producer has their version of the thing.
LG's
And of course,
doesn't
with
even
Android, you can
function.
also.
As somebody
Sorry,
that
what?
used it, somebody that used an LG phone at one point, like LG's like own store didn't even function to the point where like they just gave up and just went solely with like the Google Play Store. I don't know if
Yeah.
they shifted
Okay,
back
I
to
didn't know.
that, but like I know OnePlus has one because one of my friends has a OnePlus phone. They are a degenerate and have the Genshin Impact edition. Uh,
Ah,
that is
okay.
literally a
Good for them.
thing. It's literally a fucking $1,800 Genshin Impact branded phone, and I'm like, why?
Okay.
Why are you like this?
Now that's a problem, actually. I take back what I said. Anyway, but the point is, like with Apple, they have like this weird thing where you can, if you buy Apple products, you can only get things through Apple with their money. So your money just becomes their money, and that's
Mm-hmm.
how they become like one of the richest companies in the world. And thankfully, now the governments are getting involved in this, and I'm hoping that's a good sign for the future with other monopolies and unfair business practices. Because even though, like when the governments are kind of stepping in with the Microsoft Activision acquisition, at that time I really wasn't on their side because like the gaming industry is huge enough that Microsoft purchasing Activision does not all of a sudden make things unfair for the rest of the world. It's just COD is just popular. That's
Yep.
all that they were fighting over, which is silly.
Yeah.
But well, I guess there is the preservation of cloud gaming, so I'll give them that. But outside of that stuff, like that was just like a lot of money being exchanged, people looking into it. But Apple has been getting away with a lot of nonsense for a long time. And as someone with Apple device, I'm going to be happy to be able to hopefully buy non-Apple things on my Apple devices. And it'll be nice, even though they're going to make it as hard as possible to do it, because even with the European stuff, they have all the warnings and requirements that make it very difficult, and if not just downright too much for investors to like try to have non-Apple options on their devices.
Yeah, like for me, like my reason I left the Apple ecosystem originally is because I had an iPhone. It got broke at work. And like I had Apple Care, but because of the way that it broke, it was considered like human error. Because I was using like the flashlight on it to see behind because this was when I was doing internship. I was using like the flashlight. I had it propped up on a server rack. The server came down suddenly and snapped the phone. Um, and because they consider that human error, they weren't going to cover it under Apple Care, even though Apple Care is supposed to cover fucking anything. Uh, so I was like out literally thousands of dollars, years of like backups, all that stuff. And that's why I just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go to Android. And I started off with like a LG K7, I think it was, and then shifted like solely to Samsung. And I've been Samsung since like my senior year of college at this point. But at the same time, like every fucking thing I had ever owned on any device had been Apple, right? Like, so the inability to like port like anything over is one way that they have that like giant monopoly over people as well. They have an app now apparently to where like you can port like your text history, your photos and everything between at least Samsung and Apple. There's a essentially like when you get like a Samsung phone, you can do like a smart switch where it just like essentially allows you to port everything from your old device like right to your new one, basically just through the app itself. There's a version of that for like Apple to Samsung, so they've at least become more consumer friendly in that regard since I left them. But at the same time, I'm very happy that like they're essentially being forced to allow side loading, because that's something that's always been in the background. If you jailbroke your iPhone, you've always been able to like add like modified IPA files. You've always been able to add like your own like background stores and shit like that, but you've never been able to like run native quotations like Android content. You've never been able to do like anything else to that regard. But I really do want to see where that goes as we kind of move forward, because I don't picture them making literally any step of this process easy, because this is Apple. But we'll see.
Well, no.
We'll see.
But I do think that the government, the American government, I should say specifically, seems to be pushing a lot more like the tech industry, which is nice to see. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it's the Biden administration. Maybe it's some other faction of the government taking power. I don't know. But like recently, I remember the FCC. This wasn't really on our list because it wasn't related to gaming, but I just wanted to bring it up. The FCC had like a thing where they said it's like, okay, broadband is no longer just 25 mbs. Now you have to be a minimum 100. And I'm like, the minimum was 25?
Back where I grew up, it was like 25 kbs.
Oh, man. So, I mean, good for them. I as glad as I was for that, I was, checking my own internet speeds from home. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad we're above that. But now I just realized that my speeds, which still work for me. I mean, I'm able to do this kind of stuff. But it's still like just above the minimum at this point. So it's like, okay, well, now we need to work on pricing everything. Because like when I look at the rest of the world, I think in Europe especially, like you guys get like way better internet for like a quarter of some of our prices.
What's everybody's internet bill like? I paid $282 a month.
Well, considering I don't pay the internet bill here, so I can't really say. But when I was living away in a shared house, it was only like £5 a month for me.
I hate you so much. I hate you so much.
I
mean, mine is like through my family, but it's Xfinity, and so it is still like a lot.
Yeah,
for a
I'll
family
have to actually look and see how much the internet bill is for here for our company. But it's funny you mentioned that, like better internet, and then literally today when I was in the middle of a PvP battle, the internet goes out.
See, I don't deal with that thankfully, but I also do get like no loop shafted by Xfinity here, so
I mean, the reason I brought it up is just because I saw on Twitter people comparing internet speeds with all this stuff coming out, and like I have seen like some speeds like in like the gigabytes for like less than $100, and I'm like, how?
Google Fiber.
Because I had to do like the conversions and everything, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Because here, getting even just bare minimum internet, like through Xfinity, is like over $100.
All right. I'm just looking at the prices for the internet company we use, which is Sky. So how much is it over there a month for you, Fex?
I pay $282 a month.
Guess how much it is over here
in gigabyte.
So the average speed would I'm just looking at like the lowest price point here. Mm-hmm. So the average speed would be 61 mbs on average.
Well, I mean, he's actually below our like government mandated now.
What's
Yeah,
government
that's fucking-
mandated?
100
Yeah, but he's
MBS.
going to like the minimum. Like, okay,
Yeah,
but
but
like,
that's the
what is
minimum.
the price of
Okay.
a gigabyte?
Okay, I'll go to the but the minimum. Guess how much, Vex?
Probably like 20 pounds.
28. And that's for the
Okay.
minimum. For like the most expensive, which would be 900 MBS. That's 42 a month.
Okay, see, that's what I mean. 42 for
Jeez.
like what you're using.
Jesus.
Yeah,
And
I'm
like,
gonna-
why
I'm
wouldn't you
gonna
get
post-
those speeds if it's only like that much more?
Right.
Yeah, so I'm gonna post it in like the from like the actual Sky website
Yeah.
in Gaming Pod.
I
So
hate
there we go. Enjoy.
Yep, thank you. Okay,
UK
yeah.
stays winning there, I guess.
Yeah, so like for I'll have to like convert these into dollars, but like I'm like a pound, do you happen to know like what that is in
It's like
dollars?
125,
close.
I think.
Yeah, so it's just only like slightly less expensive. Yeah, so if you got like $50, I guess, think about that. $50 a month for like what internet speed you're spending. Oh man.
Yeah.
That is just insane.
But
And then
just
like
it-
our minimum is just like what's you could pay for like a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah.
enjoy
That's
that
just-
compared to your 250 a month, Vex.
I fucking hate this.
But no, that's the thing. That's why I'm hoping like all of this stuff we're doing right now leads to America actually acting like a proper first world
You know,
country.
the sad part is at the end of the year, my price goes up because I've been on a promotion. So I'll have to browbeat Xfinity into fucking giving me another promotion, threatening to cancel because
Yeah, they will
literally,
do that. But this is why they can do that because they're overcharging the shit.
yeah, because
have that
literally they
monopoly.
are the only provider in my fucking area, like at all.
I imagine it's similar to like your phone bills over there as well, like a similar.
I
insane
don't even
price.
want to say how much my T-Mobile bill is. I
Yeah,
don't.
don't.
I
'Cause, like, it's not just my phone,
Again,
it's
I'm
also-
on a family plan.
Yeah, don't say it. Don't say it.
I mean, my
Because-
internet is also tied with like TV and like other stuff. So, I mean, I still think like what we have for a deal is not bad, but compared to what you guys have over
Yeah,
there, it's still
I imagine like it will I imagine it's probably the highest for us, so like the 42. I'll have to go back.
I mean,
I'll
there's
have to
really
go
no
and-
reason not to get the highest.
Right.
Yeah,
based
I'll
on
have to go.
price.
I'll have to go and ask, but I think it's because also it's tied to our TV as well.
Yeah.
Right, which means you probably get it like even better deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically a better deal, but you also have to have cables.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah. Which I'm just gonna say on a side tangent, it's crazy how back in the day when I was a wee little tyke, my parents were like, oh no, when we can't afford the quote unquote cable TV, and now we've literally got the cable TV when we're older.
yeah, and the funny thing is, you still have to
I
pay for
also
a
didn't
TV
grow up
license.
with cable either. I actually didn't even know of its existence as a kid.
Really?
What was that
Well,
you
it
saying?
wasn't until like my preteen years where we got like a dish, and
Oh,
I'm like,
good
oh,
old
there's more
Dish.
channels
Oh,
out
good.
there.
We've still got our dish. Funny story. Like 20 years ago, a bird. I can't remember what type of bird, but a bird built its bird nest on our actual dish, and remnants of it are still there to this day.
Christ. I like it's crazy to think about. Like, I bounced between cable and dish and cable and dish, and like no provider would stay where I was growing up because it was like the fucking boonies of the boonies.
Yeah.
There's not enough people in the town to warrant the expense of running the cable line there,
I
basically.
think that's why I've got it better off than you, Fex, because of the fact of where I live as well. Because like Manchester is like the third biggest city in England.
Yeah, and now I'm in like one of the biggest cities in Michigan, and like I still only have one fucking provider here.
Yeah, but like Michigan's super weird because that's where I grew up with that dish, and yeah, Michigan is just like all over the place in terms
Yeah.
of what it provides.
Like I like my cell phone service was Alltel and it barely worked there.
I've never even heard of that one.
It eventually became part of Verizon.
Oh, okay.
After acquisition, it eventually became like a part of Verizon. But like it was just like the one provider that we could have out there in the fucking boonies, and it barely worked, and it was like $250 a month for my family's plan, but that was the way to stay connected then. But like as for like Toys for Bob, there's been some interesting developments there. They separated from Activision, right? I'm trying to like get the timeline here. They separate from Activision, which is part of Microsoft now, but also they're being funded by Microsoft for their new project. Am I getting all of that right?
Pretty much right after the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, there were some layoffs, which is kind of expected with the merger, removing redundancies and whatnot, and probably some inefficiencies in the company considering how it was heading. And during that time, we were like worried who's going to lose their job. And Toys for Bob went independent; they bought themselves out essentially. And at that time, they even said it's like we're in talks with Microsoft about working on games with them, and now we got confirmation that their first game as an independent studio is being funded by them. So I don't want to necessarily call them second party because they are still fully independent and could easily like make stuff for Sony, but it looks like their first title is a Microsoft exclusive more than likely.
Yeah, like I'm happy for them that they kind of split and are no longer like a skeleton crew for Warzone, because that's essentially what they've been doing outside of like that one random like party brawler for Crash.
Right. But the other side of that people should be aware of is that they don't own the IP that they worked on.
Yeah.
So this next one, it could be a Spyro game or a Crash game or something, some other Microsoft IP that they're like, hey, you guys would be great for this IP that we happen to own. Or it could just be like they came out of a new IP to kind of like flagship their new thing, and or they just have a new IP for Microsoft saying it's like, hey, you guys could use some more IP.
Watch it be
yourselves.
Scalebound. Watch them be the ones that resurrect the Scalebound.
You know what? I kind of would love that just for so many reasons. Because number one, I trust Toys for Bob way more than Platinum Games.
As a Platinum stan, I also agree with you.
And like, second of all, it would be just like it would be such a different game with their art style, right? Because Scalebound like would take a different like tone, I feel, different environment. But if it was still pretty close to what it was, and like Platinum saw that, I just need that. I just need that reaction from Platinum where they're like, Microsoft, I thought we were gonna do this together. It's like, no, what?
We gave you 10 years and you still didn't have more than proof of concept. They did this in 2 nights on a couple bag energies.
That would be just the best. And plus, also, just like as someone, because Scalebound, I always remember as the IP that really turned my head towards Microsoft. It wasn't just like the console that like my friend who I go over to his house occasionally has. It's like, oh, okay, this is a company that has games that I might be interested in because it has dragons. So to have Scalebound come back on Game Pass with like a studio like Toys for Bob behind it, it would honestly get so much attention. But
Yeah.
that's like a huge pipe dream.
But
I still feel like it's more likely one of their more traditional IP.
The difference between like a Platinum version and a Toys for Bob version is I won't be able to fuck the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, I guess those are the sacrifices we have to make. I mean, if you want to, like, we have like Baldur's Gate and regular D&D for that.
Exactly. I that's literally the meme of like the D&D / Baldur's Gate like shit is like you can fuck anything here. You can also become a bear and fuck a player character because this is D&D. But anyway,
well that gives a new meaning to the term. And
Oh
I
God.
don't get the reference.
God,
Uh,
why does that accent sound familiar, but I can't place
it,
it?
it's it's S harassment panda from South
Oh,
Park.
right.
Oh,
Because she said the bear
yeah, the
the
bear.
bear
I got it.
fucking the human.
Yeah, I mean, that was a deep cut, and you actually did the voice pretty well.
Yeah,
She,
yeah, but it's like that just immediately came to me. But I was like, can I really say this on the video? I was like, okay, demonetized.
we are how far into this video? I'm pretty sure
Over an
the
hour.
yeah, we're an hour and 52 in.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh
I
man,
don't
we're
think
almost 2 hours.
no, like hour flat in 52 seconds. But like
okay.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
think
okay.
the YouTube bot's screening this far in question mark. Um,
Well, we'll find out. We've
Yeah,
been
we
on a
will.
decent roll till recently, so
it reversed, so we're still on a decent roll.
yeah. So let's move on to the next topic. We
uh,
covered a bunch of stuff.
here's the interesting one for me, and I don't know how to feel about this in general, but this trend with Atlas is really irking me, right? Because it's essentially $105 to play the entirety of Persona 3.
That.
I'm
I
I'm
mean, Atlas has been having pretty good successes in general. I mean, Unicorn Overlord, which I think was them and Vanillaware, uh, has been like selling crazy. Even though like Vanillaware hates PC so much, they made Atlas sign a contract. It's like whatever you do, do not port this to Steam. And it's like, what? Okay, kind of weird, man, but all right. And I mean,
I
it's paying off.
I hate that. I hate that so much. I like Vanillaware. Why? Like
What did PC do to you?
you've made some of my favorite games, but like I don't want to have to boot up a fucking console to play them. Let me sit in front of my pretty little PC. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, when you
Uh
spend a lot of money on a PC, it's like, why do I want to spend more money on other stuff?
I'm trying to justify my expenses right here.
Yeah. And anyway, so that aside, Atlas has been on a roll, but I do think, yeah, with Persona 3, I mean, with Persona in general, that's been an IP they milk a lot. So I'm just kind of putting it under the umbrella of, yeah, they'll make all the spin-offs they want of 5 and 4, so why not do all this with 3 as well? It's not like the best look, but they have been getting away with it. So what's really
I
stopping them?
I long for the time where like they stop getting away with it and fans finally start revolting against them because Jesus Christ, it's getting a bit much. But at the same time, like they can get away with it. Um, they really can because they have like a really diehard fan base for Persona at this point.
I also
Um,
want to say though, it just makes like the Xbox version just that much more enticing because it's like you can pay all that money, or you can have Game Pass and just play like all this stuff without too much extra expense.
I think it was what like
I think it all comes through that, right?
I think it was like a lot of people got like the expansion pass for free for being like a Game Pass Ultimate member or like a
Yes,
discount.
I think so.
But yeah, though it's fucking crazy. Like I never expected game.
Xbox is like the best place to play Atlas games now.
I never expected that like at all because like for the longest time they were basically like Sony exclusives, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, or Nintendo ones for like the more portable
yeah, like
ones, like
Persona
the
Q and whatever.
yeah.
Like those were like
But
Nintendo QT.
now Xbox is like honestly the best platform for it,
Game
which
Pass
yeah,
fans
it's
stay
fun.
winning. Like I'll give
It
them that.
really,
But
even though
it's
somehow it's like Game Pass is like you've been getting so much good stuff, but it's like barely really expanding,
yeah,
like
like
from the way it
it
is.
was expanding like really crazy like how quickly shit was going, and then now it's kind of slowed down, and I guess it's because like we've kind of caught up to all the stuff that was being worked on pre-pandemic, right? And now we're
Yeah, I
in like
guess
a
so technically.
like now we're in like the development cycle for the new games, so we kind of like most of the stuff we see get added to Game Pass is more indie centric or like your yearly stuff, like your will be Call of Duties, all that kind of
Yeah, I think they
garbage.
added like one of the 2K games, which I
If
remember thinking
you're
that was a quick turnaround.
if you're a fan of that shit, there you go. And now you can waste the $60 that you were going to waste on the game on VC and fuel your gambling addiction.
Mhm. Just like us normal people.
Oh,
or
absolutely.
or just buy
Like
a
I was looking through
scratch
some
off.
of my gotcha like ups games today, and I'm like, man, I could get a lot of value if I spend a good amount of money, but also I could get a whole game for some of that money. So maybe I shouldn't.
Me looking at my bank account before I'm about to lose my job, like I can't afford to buy gotcha.
Yeah, really. Mm,
It's a sad day. A sad day as a gotcha addict.
yeah, it always be sad days for gotcha. We get all this cool stuff, and it feeds into our addictions all that more. Oh man. I mean, I'm glad at least like even with Nikkei, like they've been doing this ReZero stuff, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can skip it because I don't care about ReZero that much. But then I look at some of like the meta reviews for these stuff, and I'm like, oh man, do I actually have to pull for these characters? I don't want it. I want to have some principle here.
I don't want Rim or Ram with a giant shaking booty on my screen, okay? I have
Thing though, they
standards.
don't even have it in the game, and so a lot of people are like, okay, so they didn't want to like sexualize the ReZero characters too much, which is weird when you look at ReZero, but they were still releasing it in Nikkei, and so I'm like, cool, I can skip it. It's not worth it. But now it's like maybe it is worth it. God damn it.
Didn't they have like an absurdly jiggle physics centric Makima?
Oh yeah, yeah, they went hard on Makima and like 2B and A2.
But yeah,
It's not like there aren't characters without all that much jiggle physics. Like there was like one character that like basically designed to be more like a student, like a young student, and the jiggle is actually like on her little penguin friend, which accompanies her, and I thought that was adorable. But they didn't. They had like no jiggle for like Rem or
Yeah.
Amelia.
Yep, the only podcast on YouTube where we could talk about jiggle physics.
we're all
I mean,
degenerates
it's
here.
fair because like Vex and I both still play shift up stuff. He has like Stella Blade on the way.
I hate that I've got that on the way, and I'm like invested in the fact that the demo is finally actually releasing, right? Like the demo that they try to like you saw nothing with.
Yeah.
Because
Actually, that was another topic. I don't know if we want to transition to that, but like when that came out and then got pulled, and then people who said it's like, yeah, I downloaded the thing and it still got removed from my system. I'm like, they can do that? That's concerning. We should be very concerned that they can do that.
yeah,
'Cause, like with PT, the big thing was that like people downloaded it, so when it was pulled off, they still had it for some level of preservation in this digital world. But removing from people's systems after downloading, even though I understood that they don't want to release a demo too early, either because it doesn't reflect the product as well as they want, and like Shift Up does need the time because when they release stuff early, people like this community does notice because even with the ReZero stuff, they're like, yeah, they messed up a lot of these things on the assets. But even with that, it's not okay when they can just remove the stuff that we own from our thing just because it's connected to like the internet.
I wonder how much of it boils down to how the architecture is on the system versus from like a PS4 to a PS5 perspective. Because I
It
know
could
like
be, and for all we know, that's going to get worse down the line because an Xbox Next system, according to leaks, is like cloud based, and so it's like the whole system is effectively connected constantly in order to be able to do most of its functions,
yeah, it's going to
which
get
likely
real
means the
weird.
games will be too.
It's going to get real weird. Because like I remember it was relatively quick turnaround in the like the modding community for the PS4, but like the PS5 like just had its first like jailbreak like not too long ago. And a lot of that from what I was reading on like Reddit threads has come down to like how the kernel protection is on it, which I don't know how much legitimacy there is to be had in a Reddit thread, considering I'm gonna be real, like 95% of my Reddit threads are all porn related. like,
Why does that not surprise me?
I am in almost 45%, maybe 50% of like all of the like hentai, like the popular hentai Reddits. Um, just because I like the art. I'm gonna justify that on the art side of things.
Sure, sure.
And
There
not
are some like, really good art out there, so I'm gonna trust Vex on this.
and I definitely am not more in the monster fucker fetish side of Reddit. Absolutely not.
Facts. We know you.
My wallpaper wasn't until I went back to work. Definitely not Mothman getting dick down.
Yeah, we know that, but we know that there is a limit to it. Facts. One of them being Trakina monster form in Power Rangers.
I am shocked there's not more hentai of that. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. But like for me, I just stumbled across it because like I was in like, do you guys remember the PlayStation Classic? Like the like tiny ass micro console trend that we had.
Yeah. It was released in China, right?
And it also was here.
Yeah,
but like,
and it was released here as well.
But like,
okay, so it was in more places than I thought.
It was just like basically a glorified emulator station. I was in the subreddit to like kind of mod mine. Because I'm like, oh, well, this is tiny. I can just take it with me. And then the Steam Deck became a thing. And I'm like, well, I don't fucking need you anymore. I'm just like Andy throwing away his toys. But like,
I don't want to play with you anymore.
Yeah, no, like literally, like the second I got my Steam Deck, I'm like, I don't fucking need this thing anymore. But like it was like a go-to emulation station for me for a while. But like one of the people that was working on like modding that was trying to figure out a way to mod their PS5, and that's kind of how I figured that out. And I don't know if there's any legitimacy to it or not, because Reddit threads can either be like 100% truth or 100% like bullshit. Looking at the TikTok story time in particular trends of like, I was like 15 and blah 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 kind of thing. I'm like, okay, yeah, none of this happened, buddy. But like it was weird to see it. But with like the fact that they can take our demos and our content isn't really shocking either, because we're in an era where like a game disc even is just a license to play the game, and the ability to play this game can be removed at any time if the server shut down, right? Look to like Overwatch 1, for example. Like the second it went transitioned over to Overwatch 2, like Overwatch 1 servers were like unplayable. Battleborn, Gigantic got a remaster thing, but it was one of the games like it was on like Xbox Game Preview for a long time, and then it just shuttered. And then Gearbox kind of brought it back. I think it was Gearbox anyway. But yeah, like with this, it was concerning because I didn't even get to the demo in time for it to fucking like fully download before it was just gone. It was fun to see it pop up and then pop out, but like now I guess I have the license for it again because it's in my like purchases, but like it's like 2 weeks before the game comes out, or not even. It comes out the 8th, which means I'll not be able to play it till I get back either. So, that sucks. But like, I'm very much concerned with like the direction of gaming in that regard, because if we go like fully cloud based, it's just going to be more simple for them to just like pull your access to it. And we talked about this, like if you get banned, you like don't have access to any of the like hundreds of thousands of dollars of shit that you purchased, which is concerning on another level from a consumer standpoint. Like, little brother says something bad in a voice chat on Call of Duty, you now no longer have access to your entire fucking game library. We've seen streamers get their shit taken like midstream because like their relative is playing in the other room on their other account. But like a demo was a wild one to pop out. But it is what it is. I guess we gotta get used to it with the shifting times. This is the reason why I don't like use voice chat outside of like our videos at all in video games anymore. I want all games, all competitive shooters to have like a ping system like Apex Legends. Like no voice chat, no nothing. Just simply from that perspective. You posted this one and I'm curious about it, Party Jams. Has there been any more news from like the I'm Miyamoto here logging into the Nintendo account to say we have a new Mario movie in the works?
Oh, yeah. So, as far as I understand, there's not much new other than its existence, which kind of is on par for how they did like the first Mario movie. Actually, if anything, this morning, which I was watching the Spawn Wave, which I do regularly for my gaming news, they had something more about even the Zelda movie than the Mario movie,
It
which was
it
is
it,
another
it
thing that's in the work.
yeah, it boggles my mind that there has never been a Zelda movie.
There has
Well,
been.
they had
Oh,
something in the works with Netflix for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
oh, right, okay.
But
I
then
just
it
never
got
heard of it.
canceled because like somebody at Netflix, I guess, talked about it before they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, Nintendo, are you really that petty? And yeah, they
Yes,
are.
they are that petty. It's
I
Nintendo.
I remember like does anybody have the fever dream memory of like the fucking I think it was Smosh did it, but there was like a little teaser. I think it was around April Fools of like a Zelda movie.
It Yeah, I remember that. It wasn't the fever dream. It legitimately happened. It was an April Fool's, but it was, I guess, supposed to be like an adaptation of Ocarina of Time or something like. Because it
Was it
mentioned
like what
the
looked like a live action movie?
Mm-hmm.
And they
yeah,
had.
because it mentioned
Okay, I
like
think I remember that.
the hero of time. So I was
Mm-hmm.
like thinking like, oh, it has to be like it has to be Ocarina of Time. This is adapting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
remember
So
that. And now they're subtweeting me in a fucking song with Baby No Money.
Yeah. I did see a tweet where it had leaked information for the next Sonic movie.
I don't want to hear
yeah, well,
it.
their
It,
Sonic movie really hasn't had too many leaks. Like
yeah,
the
it
few
was
leaks
just
I
mainly
have seen.
it was just mainly about the runtime. That was it.
Oh, I
I saw
mean,
that too, yeah. And honestly, that runtime made me question, well, one, either the validity of the leaks or like how early in the process it is. So without
Yeah,
saying much, the runtime of the movie is way longer than most just like long movies.
yeah, it is.
So I
Thanks.
think this is the before editing process, which makes
yeah.
sense because the movie's not
Yeah,
out till the end of the year.
It
They
kind
probably
of
have like too
makes
much
me.
footage to use.
Yeah, it kind of gave me because I did see that like it was an absurd long runtime, but I'm like I don't buy it, but I also don't want to know anything about because I want to go into the movie like surprised with what's going on because I just watched two again to prep for the Knuckles show.
Yeah, show. Yeah, coming out next month.
Yeah, like it and fucking Fallout are out at the same time. I'm like I'm going to be busy on multiple levels. Um but like for me, I'll be curiosity watching Fallout, but I'm going to like from everything that the Sonic franchise has given me, like live action adaptation, like they haven't done a thing wrong really to me. But I'm also not a diehard Sonic fan like you, Party Jams, so like I'm pretty easy to please on that regard. I fucking would love a remake of Sonic Unleashed. I know a lot of people would rather slit their wrists than do that.
The thing with Unleashed is, yeah, that was a game that I think the fan base forgets that people really hated at one point in time,
yeah. I
because
remember.
now it's considered like one of the best
Yeah, I
entries.
remember seeing that, considering one of the best. And then I just think back to Yahtzee's review of it when it first came out, and him just like crucifying it.
Yahtzee's
Yeah,
just a general dick, and I love him for it though. Like I love him, but Jesus Christ, like any minor inconvenience in a game, he'll rip to shreds. I think I just because I grew up in that era of the internet is why I loved zero punctuation now, like fully rambolic. Uh, it's the new like Second Wind style he does that with, and I'm really enjoying like Second Wind following their content mill essentially, but like fully, community funded, which I'm enjoying them being able to make the things they love to do.
Couldn't really get into zero punctuation back when like the escapist was a thing. So I guess just because like internet discourse over things just almost always tended to go towards negative, and of course during that time especially, people played it up a lot for comedy. But I think even more so nowadays as an adult, I'm just like, do you guys just not like the things that you like? Because I'm very confused.
Yeah,
I'll see like because like when people complain, for example, about like the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth mini games, I know they're not like insulting the game as a whole. It's just they don't like
There are
certain mini
so
games.
many fucking mini games on that, and like Ann Arbor and I got into like a little spat about it. Like I I 100% am not a fan of like a giant portion of the mini games, and also fuck that stupid chocobo flying shit because the controls are ass. They actually added like other control schemes for that. I saw after I'd already finally like beat it. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Fucking like, there's one particular one where like if you don't have like split second timing on it, it's impossible to beat. And like watching my partner play through Crisis Core, I forgot how bullshit some of the combat was in that, and I'm like, right, this was the era of the PSP where like you didn't have like a lot of the like freedom for like commands, and there's a lot of people's issues with like Birth by Sleep as well. It's like it was a lot of combat melding and shit like that for like the materia in Crisis Core. And I'm just like, okay, so, hun, here's a spreadsheet, and this will help you. And they're over here like, what the fuck am I looking at? I'm like, trust me, this will make your life so much easier. You just got to memorize this Excel spreadsheet of like, this is how to make certain material to make like the boss fights better. Yeah, but it was the same thing with like the mini games for Rebirth. It's like, okay, you got to do this thing and this thing and this thing to make like the Fort Condor shit easier for you. I'm like, why? Why do you got to do this for like anything, right? But it's also like content overload, right? And that's an issue I have with a lot of modern Square stuff. Is like they want to cram a lot of shit into a small portion of things, but and this is like essentially filling out thirds of a game, right? Because part one is like disc one, part two is like disc two, part three will be disc three, basically, is the easiest way to describe the remake trilogy. But to make this into like 60, 70 hour games, they kind of flesh it out with like mini games and side quests and stuff, and me wanting to drop kick Chadley from across the fucking room every time he's like, world intel, fuck you, I don't care about world intel, let me experience the story, please. But yeah, it's not as bad as people make it out to be either. It's really not. Like, none of it's like overly necessary to the extent where like you have to do the thing, but it's better if you do to get the full experience of the story, in my opinion. But you don't have to play like every level of every mini game. You don't have to 100% complete it. But I guess to justify a $70 experience, people are like, but I want to 100% everything, and I get that as well. Like, there was a time where like I wanted to squeeze every bit of content out of a game, but that was also a time when I didn't get a lot of games either as a kid, right? Like we would sit and we would 100% every Spyro game back in the day because like that was the one game we got for that portion of time, right?
Yep. Because like it's like holidays, birthdays, you get like a game maybe.
yeah.
And I mean, I guess you do kind of take that for granted now when we just have like crazy backlogs, but I guess going back to like the original topic of video game movies. So like with Sonic, yeah, there's been a couple of leaks. I obviously won't say anything to respect, but I just can't avoid it just because I'm very deep in the fandom. And like even just yesterday, we had a leak of like the new mobile game coming out. So it's like, man, Sonic is gonna have no surprises coming up this year because we just know everything.
How did Sega become the new Ubisoft? I'm genuinely curious.
I don't actually know. It's very confusing, but I will at least respect that Sega, unlike Nintendo, won't take any like real legal action against any of this because they're like, "Oh, it's out. Okay, that's cool. We can just talk about it, I guess now."
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice that you have like the conversations happening. But at the same time, like I miss when like gaming was more of a surprise, you know? Like
I
I
mean, yeah, and it is also bothersome when people also say it's like, oh, like because Sonic has like a yearly like, oh, here are all the stuff that we're working on this year. People are like, we already know about the stuff. It's like, yeah, I mean, of course we do. What did you expect?
like Resident Evil 9 has had like potential leaks too, and I'm like, how for one? Like and two, with what's being talked about, I genuinely don't know how to feel about the potential direction of Resident Evil, right? Cuz like
Right, but you also don't know the validity of it,
right,
so it's hard.
like it I how much do you care, Luke?
Uh, not much.
Okay, so how would you feel about an open world Resident Evil?
Well, we kind of already have that with another type of game called DC. So, uh, honestly, honestly, I could definitely see, I could definitely see that working. But it's just like, how much is it going to be, and how much space is it going to take up?
You with the like, I want to preserve my hard drive space. Like,
Yes, I do. I do.
We
how
had that
dare
whole
you, a
conversation before
modern
recording.
gamer, want to preserve your precious hard drive space? Get a new.
How how dare you, a modern gamer who also does weekly reviews that have to be put on there as well?
Just get good and put an 8 terabyte hard drive in your computer and still bitch about it like me.
Yeah, yeah, I probably would because I do have a separate terabyte. I do have a separate 2 terabyte for games.
Yeah, same.
In all honesty, but at the same time,
I have two of them.
I have an
that is taking up space.
I have an 8 terabyte drive that I've used mostly for games, and then I have like two terabyte drives that are specifically for like content. And that's why like
Mm.
a lot of like shit I separate between hard drives. But now that like every game was like optimized for a solid state, right?
Yeah, that's the other problem.
Yeah, that
I'm
is a definite
debating on
problem.
like nuking my 8 terabyte like disk drive and just getting an 8 terabyte SSD if I can fucking get one. Like I don't even
Yeah, I
know.
might do the same when
Yeah,
I
you
get my
probably
next
could get one.
computer.
Well, with my computer, I can always just like take off the glass side and
Yep.
put like a new terabyte, new hard drive in if I want to. But yeah, I think you can get 8 terabytes.
I
Still,
It would
yeah.
cost you.
Like I'm actually going to look this up really quick. Well, we transition
Okay,
over.
you do that. I'll keep talking. Because I don't really play the Resident Evil games, but something I'm noticing is that a lot more games, like in general, are just going open world. Like even like the recent Sonic game, which I really enjoyed. It was also kind of trying to emulate that, but in its own style. And I don't think it's a problem, but when everyone's doing it, it's almost like, okay, what's the next non-open world game I'm gonna play? Let's talk about that. Because at this
yeah,
rate, I feel like every IP that I love is gonna be like, hey guys, we have an open world game coming out. It's like, but this was a turn-based RPG or a platformer. What are you talking about?
yeah, and that's kind of a problem. Like
Because
uh
Vex, you and Red were talking about Zelda in the last Chainsaw
yeah,
Man.
I
Oh yeah, I'm shocked that that didn't have more blowback. But I guess it's like a general consensus at this point. Like it's
It
not.
really is, honestly.
yeah.
Like I'm glad. By the way, an 8 terabyte SSD is $548 fucking dollars.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm looking at a 10 terabyte SSD at the moment. That's like £369. Well, £370.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
but like
about the same.
I go with quality over like I will go with a brand that I know over like generic. I'm guessing Chinese dog shit. Because I don't want like a Bitcoin miner thrown into my computer. Uh.
Yeah, no, that's valid, honestly.
Oh no, it was the Samsung one
Oh
that I
shit.
was looking at.
Well, send me a link to that. I'll buy that then if it's a Samsung one. But also I don't
Well, it
want an
also
X.
depends where Luke's looking, because if you have to import it from somewhere, it
Yeah, I'll
might,
also be getting
add up.
that the like customs fees, and I already have to deal with enough customs fees in the next couple months that I don't want to deal with them if I don't have
Yeah,
to.
it's on Amazon that I saw it.
Well, I
Okay,
know
yeah,
I
send
can
it.
like get Amazon UK to America without paying like services, so that's good. Because that's how I got the first two volumes of the Power Rangers comics, like the hardcovers, because they were cheap. They were cheaper on like Amazon UK than they weren't on Amazon US. I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to try this. But like, I agree with you, Luke, on that. Like, there not being any compression anymore for like fucking games. Like, it's ridiculous. As
Yeah,
much
and
as I
it's
love things like Baldur's Gate 3 and like all these other games that are really good conceptually and graphically and story wise, it's like file compression is a lost fucking art. Like, it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
and it is something that I brought up as like a topic I wanted to bring up.
Did you
Uh,
see the size of the fucking South Park game, by the way?
oh my god, I'm getting that for Switch. That is a game I'm 100% getting for Switch.
Like, there is
I mean,
no
good luck with that because I feel like even a game like that is going to have some trouble running on Switch.
like
Yeah,
there
well,
is
Unless you mean like Nintendo's like next thing, which maybe.
yeah. I haven't looked at it, but I'm like, considering what I saw for Jedi Survivor, like being and this was the case here that I wanted to say because I would prefer there would be a game that's like, okay, the graphics aren't like the absolute top peak, top tier graphics, but you can get a lot of content out of it. The story is engaging, and the world is fun to explore. And I'm gonna bring it up again, Guild Wars 2 over Jedi Survivor because yeah. The graphics in Guild Wars 2 aren't as like up to date as Jedi Survivor, but they're still visually pleasing to look at, and the world is just fast, interesting to explore. You get like you can spend just like 100 hours just going around exploring, and it's only like 69 gigabytes.
yeah, there's no reason that the South Park game should be 45 gigabytes, by the way. There's none. Like,
Oh,
at
for a
all.
second there, I thought you were going to say it was something like 100 gigabytes.
No, but like, even as like for me, like, I don't picture South Park as being like an intensive game, like any of them. Like Stick of Truth, like Fractured Butthole, like none of these games are graphically intensive. None of them are like super open worldy.
Yeah, the whole point, the wasn't the whole point of like the South Park games is that it has to look like the show, which is cheap.
Right. And this is like a cheap 3D version of the same fucking universe, right? Like, you are in South Park, Colorado for like the vast majority of this game, allegedly. It like in Fractured But or not Fractured Butthole, but like Stick of Truth, like the most you did was like you had a mission in Canada, right? But like even that was
And
a tiny map.
yeah, and the mission in Canada was like because they always shit on Canada. It was like one of those old PC ROM games.
Like, there's no reason this game should be as big as it is, right? And then you look at things like the new Alone in the Dark, which I played the demo of on stream, and it is sitting at 50 gigs of available space for just like the install, which
Fuck's sake.
like that's not horrible by today's standards, but like at the same time, this is a game that is based on a Atari game back in the day. It's a reimagining of a fucking Atari game. Right?
It's eventually going to get to the point where you'll need a 500 gigabyte SSD just to run one game.
But you are describing Warzone. Like, I was talking, I don't think we were. I don't think we hit like live or like record when I was talking about Warzone, but like
No.
it's stupid. Like, none of the shit should be as big as it is. But at the same time, like I very much am enjoying like the Alone in the Dark aesthetic. Like, the demo was good. I guess it came out today or maybe well, I guess 5 days ago actually. Which I didn't even realize. Like, it was out. So this is something that I'll be buying like once I know if I have like permanent employment again soon, because I don't want to sink $70 into a game.
Oh my god, I was kidding. I was kidding about the 500 gigabytes, but no, Ark Survival Evolved 400 gigabytes.
Oh no, 100%. That game is like data creep 101.
And I'm just there like, why do you need that much for? That's literally
there
like
are like 10 separate like big
Okay.
expansions for that game though.
Okay, to put it
Yeah, games that
Catan,
continuously add on itself get bigger. Like I can say
yeah,
that as a gotcha gamer, I'm
yeah,
glad to have a phone
okay,
with more space
yeah,
now because
yeah,
Nikkei keeps getting bigger and
Like
Honkai.
Honkai
yeah,
is hitting close to like 30 gigs on my phone at this point, and I'm
yeah.
like, Jesus Christ.
But to put that into context, Ark Survival Involved uses more gigabytes than the 100 Mission Yosakura reviews and the 80 like Dr. Stone reviews combined that I've done.
Why haven't you deleted your old videos from your hard
Oh,
drive though?
I've put them on. I've put them on a separate hard drive because I want to preserve them facts.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's a good thing to do
yeah.
Yeah,
because
so
it's like
I've put them on a portable hard drive.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do that with a lot of like our old videos as well as like a preservation thing, just in case YouTube does some fuck shit.
yeah, you never know what happens on YouTube.
But like it would take me a while to like download and archive all of our old content as well.
Yeah, yeah,
I
but
have
that
some
but
of our old streams on an old external hard drive that I need to do something with as well. I've been saying for a while I'm going to like upload them as like archival footage to like the like VOD channel, but I just haven't got around to that because life be busy. But it's definitely like a thing now with gaming that I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I understand like graphically we've gotten a lot better and like shaders and all that shit are
yeah.
like big needs for a lot of these games, and like every game wants to have like ray tracing and AI upscaling and all this other bullshit, and I'm like, I remember when games were just fun.
Yeah, yeah, and also as well, I don't know if you really notice this about games, but particularly the more advanced, like, look at these, almost using live action actors to play the game, which they do, but just looking at some of them, it's like you have to take your eyes away from the screen for a while, just after a while of playing it.
I definitely recommend like blue light blocking glasses to everyone. It's because like sitting in front of a monitor for a long time, I've noticed as I've gotten older, like it's hard. Like even sitting in front of like this Discord call, for example, like I have blue light blocking on the glasses I'm wearing right now, but even sitting in front of like the Discord call, like it's straining. It's gotten to the point where like you notice in like any of the live videos, like I'm holding my mic like I'm on stage anymore,
Yeah,
and not like sitting with it in the boom arm, because one, I'm more used to this form now, but also the fact that I can scan between the two monitors, but I'm looking at this from like the monitor the community got. For me, like I still don't know who the fuck bought me this expensive monitor.
yeah, because I didn't.
I legitimately love that somebody just bought something off of my throne wish list, but also
Yeah,
like
because if it,
I would love to know who you are.
yeah, because if it was me, I would have straight up told you.
Yeah, no, like I know, like if you or Tyler or Party Jams or anybody in like the mod side about it, you've been like, hey, by the way, I bought this for you, dumbass. But like
I
the
mean,
fact
yeah,
nobody's came
because
It's
through.
like it's like when I bought you that game that one time
Yeah,
on yeah. It's like, hey, I told you.
yeah. Like I did want to talk about one little fun thing that Steam did here recently that I don't think you guys probably know about. They did this family share thing, right? It's where
oh yeah,
like
no, I do know about that.
Oh
Actually, I was setting that up and sent my
yeah,
brother an invite. He's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
be coming by soon, and I'm going to say, hey, did you get my invite?
yeah,
yeah,
no,
my,
I gotta talk to like my bestie and a couple other people I invited, like my Steam family. Like, hey, by
yeah,
the way, this isn't a scam. I just invited you to like my family because I know you, like all of the people that I put in it, just to test it, like have a lot of similar interests in games, but also
yeah,
won't mind the fact that there's like 85 degenerate hentai games in my collection as well.
I've hidden mine from my
yeah.
brother
And
just in case, but
my
I
brother's
think
done
it's a good
that.
idea just because when you have family and siblings, then you're kind of used to like, oh, my games are your games, yours are mine, kind of thing. So it
Yeah,
kind of works
exactly.
with that. I think that's what
Yeah,
you were going into,
I might.
Luke.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, and my brother did that, like shared his Steam games with me. But at the same time, same time, we live in the same house as well, and
Yeah.
we play pretty much the same game. Like we go into we because we have our own like uh Discord server for me, them, and their friends to just hang out, play games. And we yesterday we were playing and watching Lord of the Rings in the background and just jokingly making fun of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, like I feel like that's what I'm going to turn like the Vex's Goblin Den server into. It's just like a community bullshit like game night server.
Yeah, that could be nice.
Yeah.
Instead,
Especially
like,
because like the leaked Sonic game, based on what's out, it could be good for multiplayer if they have like private rooms and stuff.
Or just like if somebody is like, hey, I've got this game. Do you wanna come and say have a go at it, see what you think?
oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
we've tried to set that up, but it's just not worked out yet.
No.
Like we've been able to do like Cards Against Humanity and like Rift Tracks and a few other things, but like making it like valid like game night. I know we've talked about doing like Castle Crashers. I feel like once I get back from this trip,
because like
that will
me and
be
my best
fun.
friend love
I'll be right back. Just give me a few minutes.
Yeah, no problem.
But for you and I think we can talk about this while Luke's away because he's not like a big console gamer. We do have like a potential PS5 Pro leak.
Yeah. So PS5 Pro leaks came out. At first, I wasn't sure if it was real, but then I heard there was some takedowns. So I'm like, okay, cool, it's real.
Yeah, so rendering 45% faster on the PS5. I feel like this will be like when we fully leave the PS4 era behind, which is stupid because we already are like, by the way, we're almost done with the life cycle of the PS5 as well.
Which is so crazy to think about. Because like Sony's like, yeah, we're the PS4, we're like in the late stages of the PS5. We're probably gonna sunset it soon. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. And I'm hoping that they're doing that solely for like the PS5 Pro and not the PS6 because a lot of people were
I can get behind that.
We were just able for a lot of people to finally like because of supply chain scalping and all that shit, like we were just able to like get the PS5 itself.
Yeah, and we just had like a great year of games last year, but it was also like comparative to like a drought of stuff just because of all the crazy stuff that was going on.
Yeah, and like everything was, and I feel like Xbox is suffering from the same thing. This isn't us being biased towards Sony or anything. Like Xbox was suffering from the same thing. And I feel like the Series S.
They had a whole year where they released like nothing, and even they were like, "Yeah, we did not get well prepared for this scenario."
Yeah, and the or the Xbox Series S, I feel like does hold a lot of games back. Even Larian talked about this, like having to like almost compromise on like the disc version of Baldur's Gate 3. And they're like, no, by the way, we have I think it was 3 discs for Baldur's Gate 3. Just because of like how they handle like data on the Xbox. So, and like having to optimize it for the Series S as well, because like to get licensed, I guess they have to do both, which is stupid. But at the same time,
I guess they just don't want like people who have the S to think they're not getting everything they could get on Xbox, which I get. Like at least at this stage, it's not. With the next Xbox, they're probably still gonna have like a lighter model, and I guess they don't want it to be like, you know, what Nintendo, for example, did with the 3DS line, where they released a new 3DS, which, my God, that name was dumb. But I have one. It runs great, but it's such a dumb name. But there were games that's like, this works for the new 3DS, but not the old 3DS, which is just the standard 3DS.
Yeah, and
then
there's
like, the 2DS.
There was like 4 games, I think, that were optimized for the new 3DS as well, which was like,
and they were good games, but at the same time, it's... Like, I don't think Microsoft wants that situation where like this is available on the X but not the S and blah blah blah. So I get why they did that, but if I also can absolutely see the Series S now like really throttling. But the only reason that would be a little surprising is because people are still making games for the Switch somehow.
Yeah, I feel like with the new 3DS, it was like a great way to experience Xenoblade. If you hadn't played it yet. But, like, other than that, I don't feel like there was a game that really fully took advantage of it to the extent that did, in my opinion.
I would agree with that. And I think also Nintendo really wasn't planning on doing that. I don't actually know what their plan was. I think they just released more powerful hardware just because they thought they could sell some more. Actually, it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but with like
They
the
just released some more 3DS models.
but with a PS5 Pro, rendering 45% faster, 35 or 33.5 teraflops. They're having a resolution upscaling and an AI accelerator, which I'm glad that they're having an accelerator into it, which means I figure they're utilizing like the 40 series to an extent, which is great for like more graphically intensive games. But at the same time, I don't think that there's a need for something like supporting resolutions up to 8K because
Right. And honestly, that is kind of what made me really question the leaks because the rest of it's just a bunch of numbers.
mhm,
But 8K, like, games can barely do 4K properly. And, like,
mm,
even when they can, it's like 4K 30 versus 1080p 60. So, like,
right.
let's get like 4K 60, like, standard before we jump into 8K.
The only people that are dealing with 8K, in my opinion, are the film bros that have a home theater. And I, even
Right.
as like a film buff, a self-proclaimed film buff, I know I'm not the like movie review person or like the fucking idiot that sits at home with a home theater. I would love to have a home theater. But like at the same time, like I'm not sinking $4,000 into a TV for this. Like you can fuck all the way off with that until 8K is like viable as an option. And I feel like we said the same thing back in the day about like the
4K.
in 4K. We said the same thing about 1080p. We've said this every generation, and eventually, like technology catches up. I don't think we're there yet.
We are
Um,
definitely not there yet. Like 4K, like is like affordable now, but 8K is not even a thing people think about.
like
And I think honestly, like past 4K, like
I,
I
I'm
don't think
back.
you can actually tell the difference,
like
like
it
at a
took
biological level. I
Yeah,
it
feel like
yeah,
someone's proven that.
it took me a
y-
while to be able to even tell the difference between 1080p and 4K, right? And the difference is so minuscule to me that I genuinely don't give a fuck. But also, I feel like a lot of that has to deal with like my vision being like dog shit.
Yeah,
Because
I think mine too.
yeah.
there are people that can legitimately tell like frame tears, and I'm like, how? I didn't see shit. Um, and this is like people that I know that are like also glasses wearers and like they have vision
It's
issues. But they can tell the difference. I'm like I literally can't.
it's literally the same thing as like people who just sit there and analyze something down to the absolute pixel, and it's like, do you even care at this point?
It's literally like the like finding something to argue about online aspect, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, it's like I'm just gonna use an example of like, oh no, no, this wasn't like this in like the original source material. There's this one line. I'm like, it's just a line.
Right. Like I feeling like you're digging up like dubbing versus subbing there, and I kind of agree, but I feel like it's more akin to the line of like people overly analyzing the difference between like a manga panel and the
Yeah,
actual like anime adaptation. Like they
yeah,
cut the like feet off in this scene. Maybe they didn't want to animate like the walking scene here because they were crunching to get this episode.
yeah, yeah. It was more referring to that where it's like you'll just have people who are just sitting there, just like analyzing everything down to the very
Attack on
last
Titan had a
pixel.
lot of that shit. I feel like,
Yeah,
and so does JJK. And I'm like, do you want the Mappa animators to go home at any time soon? Like, guys, let's be real here.
or is the more viable cliche option, do it yourself.
Yeah, but I genuinely like as somebody that tried to get into like games, like it's very difficult. Like I don't have the skill set for that, and I will fully admit that. Um, and a lot of it comes down to the fact that I suck at coding, like 100%. Um, I can get a website to work. It won't be fucking pretty,
But
and
yeah,
that's about
what
as far as that went. Like my skill set began and ended with fucking MySpace, like HTML coding. That's as far as I went, really.
Yeah,
uh,
honestly, I'm looking at like an example of 8K on its wiki page, and I cannot tell like
Well, also you
what the
don't have
difference
like a
is.
monitor that supports 8K either, Luke. So you won't be able to
No.
tell the difference. I'm figuring you have like a 1080p or maybe a 2K
Yeah,
monitor.
1080p, but at the same time, my 1080p, like looking at that video, like it works just fine.
Yeah. But your monitor is also only rendering at the 1080p they can put
Yeah,
out.
to
So
me, it's all down to like, can I see it? Is it crystal clear? Am I happy with it? Yes. So
I
what?
saw Oppenheimer in IMAX, and that's like an 8K screen. And like it's beautiful, like for it what it was. Uh, but
But did
like
it make it? Did it make it a better movie because it was in 8K?
not really, no. Like
That
to me. But also, I feel like at the same time, it probably wasn't the most optimized movie for that, other than like, you know, that event. Uh, but like, it was more the sound design and everything that I think feel like made that movie a better experience in IMAX, in my opinion. Um, I feel like if, say, the new Avatar went into 8K on that, maybe it would be more beautiful and you could see like the difference in that, something like that. But from a gaming perspective, do I need to see Kratos's individual beads of sweat? No. No, I
yeah,
don't.
yes, you do, Fex. Because if you don't, it's an awful game.
No, people will just bitch about the fact that they aren't following the source material of Norse mythology, which is fucking mythology. Uh,
Mythology doesn't follow the source of mythology.
Mythology doesn't follow mythology.
the difference between like each individual telling of Norse mythology as somebody that is a practicing fucking pagan is vastly different from one interpretation to the other. Just like fucking religion, people. Let's get it together
Yep.
here.
But
uh,
yeah. What else do we have on the topic list?
For us, I feel like Luke and I can dive into this one a little bit. The Battlefront collection.
Okay, but
Did you see the shitstorm that's coming out of this, Luke?
No, I didn't.
It's about halfway up. Let me
Oh,
play.
we'd like to thank the Battlefront community for the overall at launch we experienced critical.
the one thing I
Oh,
did hear about it is that
all right.
apparently in the code they use something that a mod like brought to the table, but like did
So
not credit the guy. But
so
yeah,
the
outside of that, I don't know what's going on.
so the servers couldn't support the amount of players. First of all, this is so for context, this is a port of a 20-year-old game, 20 fucking years old. Um,
And it couldn't support the amount of people.
this studio,
So,
Aspyr Studio, is not well known for being smart in how they handle their IP.
so
Um,
basically, this was the whole Rick and Morty McDonald's situation.
so it feels like there were two different versions of this game that went out, right? The one that went to the influencers, which they played, they had fun with, they were able to like get on servers and do the things that they wanted to do in the game. And then the version that the public got their hands on, because like even in like the forums for this, because I did a little bit of a dive, and it feels like there were vastly different experiences from the people that actually made content on it, like before it came out and day one, to the people that actually bought it day one. Um, in addition to the fact that they sourced a mod that they said that they weren't going to put in the final release because they wanted to give proper credit, allegedly, and they didn't. This mod allowed the Xbox exclusive content onto the PC, and you know, obviously like ROM hacks that exist on the internet, but they never credited the creator of it, because there were a couple of characters that were exclusive to like the Xbox version. Um, in addition to all of that, the inability to host games and having like basic quality of life stuff that was in the original versions of this, it just seems like this was a whole mess from the very inception of it being released to the general public. So they came out with like that press release that I put in here, where they're like, we're working on the network issues, blah 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 blah, and they've kind of been slowly upscaling, kind of like Helldivers did, because nobody expected Helldivers to be as popular as it was. Um, Nobody expected Among Us to blow up like it did during the pandemic either. But at least like Innersloth, I believe, the developers of Among Us, correct me in the comments. They slowly ramped it up, and they also made like additional maps, and continued to create content for that game till very recently, I believe. I don't know if they're still doing anything with it because I've kind of fallen off of that bandwagon. But like with Helldivers, like they're still scaling it up because it's still getting like massive influx of people coming in. Same with things like Lethal Company. It got that massive like social gaming experience. But like for things like that versus a 20-year-old port, it's kind of laughable to me. And I can see if the rumors of the KOTOR remake being scrapped are true, I can understand why. Because Spear was going to be working on that. And if they can't handle the port of a 20-year-old game, I damn sure don't have faith in them, making a full-on remake of a beloved classic.
Yeah, yeah.
As much as I would love to see a remake of KOTOR, because it's one of my favorite games, like, of all time, I vastly like enjoyed going back and playing through the original recently as well. I played through like KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2 not that long ago, and like they're still genuinely fun experiences. But if this is how this company handles things, I don't want them touching a full-on remake at all. I would rather it go into somebody that has capable hands. That's just my personal opinion. I feel like that's the communities as well after this like mess. I've not seen an overwhelmingly negative on Steam in a very long time outside of Overwatch 2. Like, that was the last one I can remember, and this one was a game that got an overwhelmingly negative. And that's saying the community is not behind you at all in this. And Star Wars is like the most fickle community. I'm not even going to split hairs there, but like,
Oh, absolutely it is.
like a 20-year-old game should not have this many issues. And if you were planning on this game being successful from the onset, you should have had the server space available to, handle at least millions of players. Yeah. And if you're putting it on AWS, it's not that hard to scale. But I don't know what their server types are. I don't know how they handle any of that. I'm not knowledgeable on that. I just saw like the massive community backlash. I'm like, I'll wait till like this is playable outside of, maybe a local game if that was working. But yeah, that was one. And then we talked briefly about this like before we started filming, but like Keyword Studios tried to create a game solely using AI and failed.
Yeah. Yeah, because hey, let's take away the human element of how to make a game and putting general emotion into I guess like the performances of a voice actor for a video game, and just have it be I am a robot, do what I say, which is ironic considering they use the Terminator there.
Yeah, I mean they're a studio that makes like Terminator games. They've also made a couple other like dystopian style titles, but I find it funny that like they kind of tried to Skynet it and failed, which is a good precedence considering we don't need this at all. However, on the same vein of things, Ubisoft is trying this with like character dialogue.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I figure
and it's just going to be put through a filter where it's just going to be like the most generic cliche dialogue ever,
which is saying something coming from Ubisoft dialogue, and I cannot.
That's the weird thing. It almost might work because of Ubisoft dialogue.
Yeah. But that's the main problem with using AI for everything. There's like no flair. There's no flair to it.
Yeah, well, there's no flair to most Ubisoft Radical or Radiant Quest dialogue anyway. Like, it's go do the thing, scale tower, go on the fetch quests.
Yeah, but part of the charm is like knowing like a human actually had to sit down and write that.
Right, but like, here's the funny thing on that. and I'm not supporting Ubisoft's endeavor into this, but I will genuinely say, like, if they're sourcing this like a generative AI, they're already going to have the most random bullshit dialogue options to go off of, right? Because the vast majority of their games all follow the same pattern now. Like, everything has turned into Far Cry 3 since Far Cry 3. And with the styles of their missions for like their Radiant quest line is I just use like the Skyrim aspect of it there because it makes the most sense. Um, I know that's a Bethesda thing, but like Radiant quest lines, like the go capture the objective, go on the fetch quest, that kind of thing. That's like the vast majority of like the side exploration in a Ubisoft game, from like Far Cry to like the Avatar game to like Assassin's Creed, et cetera, et cetera. Like they all follow that same pattern of like do the thing and then progress to the next map marker. I feel like it will actually work, like Party James was saying, and I hate that it will on that regard because it will set a precedence for other studios to follow that same pattern. I feel like, but it won't work as well with, say, generic Activision title versus like generic Ubisoft title, because even in an Activision game there's a different dialogue option, there's like actual inflection in the voice acting. Everything in a Ubisoft game is like monotone, do the thing, go on to the next thing. I almost wonder if they've been using AI longer than now for that kind of pattern. And it's a worrying standard because like we're seeing OpenAI actually meet with like film studios and game studios to kind of talk about like implementing that into there after the strike that was solely based on not wanting to replace voice actors. Like they didn't want to deal with that. And now we're seeing those same studios walk that back and meet with like the biggest proponent in this, part of the tech industry. So I just wonder like what the state of gaming will be like on that regard if Ubisoft finds success in it.
Plus as well, I've said it before with like using AI for this is for actors. This is going to put actors out of work as well. Like imagine if someone like I'm just gonna use like we were using it before, like a person who was like, "Hey, we have this offer. Do you want to be in a new Star Wars game?" And like if it was like to me, like being a Star Wars fan, and I was offered to voice a character in a Star Wars game, I'd be like, "Yeah, how yeah?" And they're like, "Oh, actually, they're using AI for it." Like that would be like the biggest cock tease ever.
Yeah, and with a lot of studios doing or tinkering with this, it does kind of make you wonder like how much of it is going to actually have a soul attached to it moving forward. I don't want to think about a time in the industry where like there's not a single actor in a video game or a single person like actually sitting down and writing the script. It's all generated by like ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I've tinkered
part
with
of the reason.
Go ahead, Party Jams.
Okay. And when I think this is when I posted the topic, and when I was putting this in, I was thinking of the anime slash manga Shangri-La Frontier, where in the premise of that series is the players are playing like an MMO, and all the NPCs are AI based, and you can tell because they'll just say stuff, and the characters will respond with dialogue. And I remember thinking to myself when I was reading this thing with Ubisoft, like, oh, okay, so I guess these are the steps to getting that type of game where theoretically the NPCs can respond to whatever the characters slash players are saying to said characters.
Mm-hmm.
And while that's kind of cool in concept, it's kind of scary when you think about the implications in real life.
Yeah, like we're already in a time where the industry is like having the mass, turnovers, studio shuttering, and everything that's going on behind the scenes there, where we have, the potential to end up in like an SAO, Shangri-La Frontier, type of gaming world where like everything is kind of like one tone for all the quests, all the like universe, everything, turning into like a absolute robotic shit show. And as somebody that's tinkered with like ChatGPT just to see like I like I told it to write like a song based around like a generic pop punk song. And it spit out like the most generic lyrics. I'm like, okay, so this is like how far the technology has progressed to, at least it knows what I'm referencing. It knows exactly where those lyrics would lead you to, but like it has no soul, right?
Yeah,
So if we can still tell the difference between like the output from a generator versus the actual, like, this is written, this is produced, this is actually like put out into like some form of like passion, we still have like a heads up and like knowing that this is bullshit, right?
yeah. It's
Uh,
like it's like if in Doctor Stone they started using Y-Man for
mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah, like I guess we still have, at least right now, a leg up in being able to know where things lie, and like this was made by a person or this was made by an AI generator. But how long can we even be able to tell that? Um, because like even if something is like a little bit quirky in its design now, people are like, this was generated by AI, right? And it might not be. It might just be
But
like somebody is like quirky and they're like, art design, right? Uh,
plus, plus it's scary. It is scary to think that if something goes wrong and they're like, oh no, this person did it, look, we've got it here, and they use like an AI simulation of someone's voice.
mm-hmm. um, I look to I know this isn't gaming related, but Alpha Wolf has a new album coming out, and it the art for it was being accused of being AI generated. And they're like, no, we paid an artist to do this. It's just like our artistic style for this album. Um, just because it looks like an I feel like it looks like you're generating not like you're emulating, I should say, not generating, emulating like the aesthetic of like a 90s metal cover, right? Uh, where everything was like really absurdist in its design versus like this looks like this came through Dali. But like just because it was emulating a retro style, people were like AI, AI, AI. Um, so I like it's splitting hairs to like where we can see the industry headed. But I do know that Sony will probably not make another fucking VR headset after this. Because like it's failed, like the PSVR 2. Like they're admitting like they're they have no knowledge of what they want to do with that branch of their tech anymore. That was one that I wasn't at all shocked to wake up to. It's sad. Um but I don't picture them. I feel like it's more the cost for that headset was what killed it more than anything. You know what I mean? Because it was like an additional $600 on top of a $600 piece of software, and there was no support for the original software either. Um, because like when the PSVR 2 came out, I feel like the only thing that they really marketed was the Horizon game, if I'm not mistaken, right? Uh,
uh I really don't know.
Party Jams.
My uh the I think it might be.
Yeah, it really struck me as like odd because it's using like the same technology as the PSVR 1, just upgraded. So I don't see why they couldn't have like at least ported or supported the PSVR 1 games at least, because we already saw like a lot of support being crossed over from PS4 games at that point
Yep.
in time. So it seems like they went in there with like, we want to do more with this technology, but we don't know how to do it, but we also want to make this. And Sony falls into that trap of like, we want to do the thing, but we don't know how to do it so often. That's why like their handheld department shuttered for a long time, and now they have like the PlayStation Portal, which seems to be doing relatively well. Like you can't really get it. It's out of stock constantly. So maybe
which just might be Sony badly stocking their device for all we
that's
know.
also true. But like,
But it also could be like what you said. It could be doing well because rumors are Microsoft is also having some prototypes, like newer prototypes for handheld devices. So I think just everyone's trying to chase after the Switch success.
mm-hmm. I mean, we have like 7 or 8 different Steam Deck knockoffs as well. Like Asus made
So there's a
one.
market.
Asus made one. MSI is making one. Obviously, like the PlayStation Portal. Even like there's a Steam Deck style holder now called the Nitro Deck for your Switch. And it did relatively well. And it's just a fucking giant set of Joy-Cons that you can slap onto your Steam or your Switch. And I'm like, okay, why does this exist? But also, I get it. But like the portability of the Switch was what made it so, marketable. And this is like a big bulky case essentially that has 2 Joy-Cons on it. But I mean, if there's a market for it, I guess make it. That's, the capitalist agenda, I guess. But like with the PSVR 2, like it just, I genuinely don't know who it was for. Because I had no desire to buy it. I realistically didn't really have a lot of desire to buy the PSVR 1 other than like the Batman game. Like that was the big thing for me, was that. And then I tried a bunch of other like free PSVR titles that were on the like the PlayStation Plus list. And they were fun-ish, but I played it maybe 5-6 times and then it sat in a closet since. And I saw like the PSVR 2, I'm like, this will probably end up in the same vein, and I'm glad I didn't waste $600 on this piece of technology. I'll eventually get it for like my collection when it's on like deep discount at a used game store, but it's just a paperweight essentially. But it's sad because like if an entire division of Sony gets shuttered because of this, it's just wasted market to me. So it makes me wonder if like they'll start, because there's so much support for like PC gaming now through Sony. I wonder if they'll just shift all of that into like, hey, Meta or Steam or whatever, let's work together to bring like some Sony titles to your guys' platforms instead. So like maybe a Steam port of the like Horizon game that was like the big marketing point for the PSVR 2 will happen. Maybe we'll see like experiences in like Ratchet and Clank universe on like Steam through like VR. I could see things like that in the future, maybe, if they want to actually be serious about VR technology. But I feel like it was one of their like failed experiments that'll just never be used again. But time will tell on that. What else do we have in this topic list?
We have Wicked Games laying off most of its staff.
This one was
we
a
had a
little bit.
lot of layoffs.
Yeah, this one was a little weird. Because I had not even heard of the studio.
No, I was like, wait, what is Wicked Games?
It was.
What did they make?
Yeah, it apparently was like founded by RPG veterans from Bethesda, Obsidian, and a few others that worked on like New Vegas, Skyrim. Outside of that, like I knew nothing about this. I had not even heard about the project that was going on. I'm going to actually click on this one again because it's been a few days since I put this in here and see what this word song even looks like. Because that was the game that was being developed, and I'm not even seeing more than like a trailer for arguably a beautiful game. From what I'm seeing here, this is an IGN clip from 2022 from Gamescom. But like it really like got off the ground and then fucked off. And that's pretty much it. And they haven't tweeted anything from the WordSong account since July of last year. Like at all.
Wow.
So I wonder if it was just like unfortunate, like oversight in like their planning or like a lack of funding that kind of led to the
It was
shuttering?
it was probably a combination of both. Like they had this idea, they were really excited about it, but were like, we're putting too many eggs in one basket, kind of deal.
And in a volatile market, especially like in the RPG space, like maybe they thought, well, let's leave this to other more qualified people, even though they seemingly like have the qualifications, having worked on New Vegas and Skyrim and like working for these big name studios like Bethesda and Obsidian. Like maybe it was just like not the right time for this kind of project if this actually did get shuttered. um or
I
maybe
mean,
this.
one thing I've learned, like with new studios, is that it's great to have like some background in like different games and projects you've worked on, but like coming together making a new thing is like a whole other beast.
Yeah,
Because like when Sonic Boom, for example, came out, like when Big Red Button was announced as a developer, I was like, okay, well, what did they work on? And they talked about like the history of like some of the devs having been in Insomniac, and I'm like, okay, but they themselves haven't made anything yet. It's like that must have been one hell of a tech demo, I guess they released.
Yeah,
But that game did not turn out good at all. And like part of it was just Sega's mismanagement, of course. But at the same time, I think like new studios like need to kind of prove themselves. And even if you tell me it's like, okay, they've worked on other games before, like individually before they came together, it's like cool. That gives us an idea of their skill set, but not if they themselves working together can make a
yeah,
brand new game.
yeah, because like Vegas, New Vegas, and like Skyrim, even though they're like both like actiony RPG style titles, right? They're two vastly different projects. One is a shooter at its heart. One is a melee combat at its heart. I know, like the meme is like you always end up playing a stealth archer in Skyrim because like it's the easiest way to play the game. But like very much fundamentally different games and like their style of play. Um, and I wonder if like part of that like led to this potential like shutdown, or if this game will still like come out in some capacity because it's not all of the staff, it's like most of the staff. I wonder how much of it was like actually completed, or how much of it was just like proof of concept, because like having not tweeted anything since last year, a little over a year of not, of basically radio silence is not a good sign from any developer. Um, even I'm even looking at things like Team Cherry, who've been like radio silent on like Silksong. I wonder if that game's ever going to come out, right? Um, but I have more faith in that because like it's a continuation of a franchise that they've already worked on at this point, versus just like a random new game. Look to the day before for an example of like how bad a game can turn out, uh, based on solely proof of concept alone. But that game was also mired in controversy from the onset, like allegedly copying trailers, being completely unplayable, and it getting like full on Steam refunds, even if you played more than like the like minimum on it or the maximum on it, because like it was just so bad and like the studio just kind of shuttered. Um, that's just like how that looks to me. Deviation Games is another one that you posted in here. And that is a studio that was working on a AAA PlayStation exclusive. It's like, why was like this one shuttered? And what the hell was Deviation Games even working on? Because that's one I also hadn't even heard of.
Yeah. I mean, I heard of their formation, how
Yeah,
excited they were to work with Sony or whatever. And I'm like, cool, guys. But I think the new rule is when you want to make a new studio, let's wait till you have a game. Then you
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah, because like how many people just joined up solely based on like who was there, only to like rotate back into the job market that's already oversaturated.
Right. And I
Um,
mean, they have to recruit people, and that's fine. But I don't think, like, as I don't know, the gaming public necessarily needs to be as aware of all this. Because, like, it's one thing if we learn about a studio that it's like, oh, okay, these guys went online and said they're forming a studio and recruiting people, versus like I think at the Game Awards there was like one Asian developer woman who came up and said, "Oh, hey, I'm having my own studio now after being in the industry for so long," and they had like a really cool like reel that they showed off, but I'm also like, but what is the game that you guys are working on?
Exactly. And it's interesting because like we see a lot of this happening time and time again, and it usually leads to this. Like you make one game and then you shut your doors, or your game that you were working on doesn't ever see the light of day. And I feel like it's fun to experiment in your skill set and everything. I speak from like the artistic perspective there as well. But like what I do versus like what they're doing is like if anything that I do, or like even if the like from our perspective here as content creators, if a video flops, it doesn't really affect like 50, 60 people's livelihoods. We do this mostly for fun
Yeah.
versus like, you know, now 17 other people minimum can't put food on their table for however long they're out of a job, right? And that's like the difference in like what is happening here so often. Um, but like even for acquisitions from companies like this, like PlayStation allegedly calling Bungie a failed acquisition, like that's crazy to think about when like even as like a semi-retired Destiny player, like Bungie is a story developer. Like this is somebody that made Halo. This is the studio that made Halo. This is the studio that made Destiny. This is the studio that had like so much success for the longest time, only to like kind of fumble upwards and back down into like obscurity among its community because they allegedly at the point where like Activision was like mainly to blame for it, but then we saw like the greed was more internalized for like the Eververse shop and a lot of the stupid like decisions to shutter content behind, you know, like hey, this season's over, so like this shit that you paid for is no longer available to you. Hope you played it when it came out originally, because now you can just watch a cutscene on YouTube, and that's how you'll experience like this particular beat of the story. Um, so Sony calling them like a failed acquisition allegedly is just wild to me. But you know, I also like was seeing the potential like marathon remake or new game turning to like generic characters instead of having a character creator, and people are just clowning on them for that. And I'm like, okay, but do we even really know anything other than the fact that this is a generic extraction shooter at heart now? We don't know anything about the story. We don't really know anything that's going on in this game. How can we call something that isn't even out yet a failure, other than we're taking away a character creator of a character that you're just going to see the backside of for the most part? Like, let's pump the brakes a little bit there before we judge that project at the same vein that we're judging current Destiny at. But I do agree with like the hesitation on that, given the track record that they have currently. But like it's still wild to me to see like failure in Bungie in the same vein as like an old school Halo fan. Um, but like we're also seeing like a massive shift in other games. Like Overwatch is like every character is going to be free now. In Overwatch 2, that was one that came out. That kind of shocked me, but also I'm kind of happy that they're not making you pay for a battle pass to unlock a hero now. Don't picture myself ever going back to Overwatch, but that is nice for the people that want to actually step back into it. Um, that was something. But also there was the fact that they canceled the story missions in that same vein. So they've cycled back essentially to like, because the whole marketing point behind Overwatch 2 when it launched was like, we're going to have story missions, we're going to have like PvE, we're going to have all this other stuff, and they've delivered on none of it. I would consider that more of a failure than the acquisition of Bungie. Because at least
Yeah.
Bungie was putting out content, and they were putting out like the vast majority of their promises to their community and the terms of the story and the content there, even if they're shuttering it. Like there's at least something there versus like we've made 5 new heroes, I think, and did one PvE story and then nothing else since then for Overwatch. And also, by the way, for the like tie-in skins for Cowboy Bebop, we're charging you $25 per skin. I'm not joking. It is $25 worth of in-game currency to buy one skin for that collaboration. That fucking
Hence why I never got into Overwatch.
I had an Overwatch 1 addiction phase, and that was a choice. It was a fun game for a while to me, though. Like, I legitimately had fun for a good while, which was something I couldn't really say for a lot of, like, multiplayer content. But I also had a bunch of friends that were playing it. That was the same reason I had a lot of fun with Siege, because I had a lot of friends that were playing it. But both of them just became, like, messes of their former selves to me, and that's why I dipped out of them. Whereas, like, Fortnite, I haven't really not had fun with a season since I started playing it. So big ups to Fortnite there, I guess.
Well, if you can get if a 75-year-old grandmother can get into Fortnite because of her grandson, then anything's possible.
Exactly. Like, but there's one that baffled me, and this one is for both of you. What would you consider the difference between a remake and a remaster?
Ooh, that's a good
remake.
topic.
I would say a remaster is.
This is all coming to light because of the 1,000-Year Door, by the way.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would
did
say
you need some time, or
I would say a remastered would be the exact same game, just with updated graphics, which is what essentially Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is. They say it's remakes, but that's a remastered version of Diamond and Pearl from Pokemon. Whereas a remake, I would say, is okay, you have the original layout of the game, but what can be done to improve it?
Okay, I'm gonna disagree slightly with Luke, just because like I was agreeing with your definition with remaster for sure. It gets like basically a prettied up version of like a previous game. Like The Last of Us was gonna be my example, where they basically took a last gen game and made it current gen by making it a bit prettier and then selling it full price. But I don't know if I mean I haven't played Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, but we aren't using like 2D assets anymore, sprite assets for that game.
But it's just like there is virtually no difference between the original Diamond and Pearl and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. There is virtually no difference. It's just
right, but
they're
in my
chibi sprite.
right, but in my definition, I think that would fall under remake because a remake is like when you take a game and you basically just make it again, but with like a new layout, assets, and maybe tossing in some additional functions and DLC. Because like with your example, it's like, okay, we have this game, we can keep the same story, the same Pokemon, the same characters, but we can now, instead of being on a portable device on a Switch, so we can use different models. And so with the thousand year Paper Mario, I think that this one qualifies kind of in a bit of a border because it's mostly a remaster from what I've seen, but they are adding like a few things and changing up some of the like smaller details, but I think it still falls under the remaster category just because a remake, I think to me for Paper Mario would look not just prettier, but just like have, I guess going back with Luke's definition of a remake, have like a whole other parts of the game added to it at least. But at most it would be, well, it would honestly just not be Paper Mario anymore, probably with like brand new assets.
Yeah, so I agree with Party Jams here. A perfect example of a remake to me is the Final Fantasy VII remakes, where you're taking like the 3-disc version and fleshing out like the ideas centered around the expanded lore of every other spin-off game. Like you're tying in Crisis Core, you're tying in Advent Children, you're tying in like Dirge of Cerberus, all of these other bits and pieces of the expanded lore that kind of didn't really matter until they mattered. And it's like the ultimate fan service to a big longtime fan like someone like me there. Whereas like a remaster is just like an upscale to me, like, hey, you're making this old game look pretty, kind of like the Insane trilogy of Crash Bandicoot, for example. Yeah. But like these lines are blurring more and more as time goes on to a lot of people, and I genuinely like when I saw this tweet, it kind of got me wondering, like, what do we really consider what? Because like The Last of Us Part 2 quote unquote remake is literally just a fucking port of the original game with like some scrap content thrown onto it and a new mode, right? And they're considering it a remake because of that. Whereas like it's the same fucking game. You're just putting the stuff they got on the like let go on the cutting room floor onto it and charging $70 for a game that was originally $60. And I don't mind paying an additional $10 to that extent, like to play like extra content. But at the same time, like you really can't call that a remake. It's the same fucking game.
It's similar to how they quote unquote remastered Power Rangers season 1, where it's literally just the exact same episode, just with bizarre special effects.
And they only made like a handful of them. Which I'm glad, because like the special effects that they added onto it made it look horrible.
Yeah, which I showed that to someone the other day, and they were like, "What the fuck is that?"
It's an abomination, is what it is.
Yeah.
Like with a 1,000-Year Door, like it looks so crisp and clean, I guess is why people are considering it a full-on remake. But like, to my knowledge, it's the same game, just prettified.
Yeah, I having played the game, the original game, obviously, because the new one didn't come out. It really does just seem like that. I think it's just like, what if this game released in the current year, but with the same dialogue? They might have shifted even some of that, because I think they make references to Fire Emblem in the original version of the game, because Fire Emblem was just coming out in the States, or out of Japan, I guess I should say, and so they might have updated like a few things here and there. And I think it has the chance to kind of remove like a lot of bad things that were in the game, like the backtracking, especially for one quest, was considered horrendous. And like if they update those things, I think you can get it closer to being a remake than just a remaster, because at that point it's like we didn't just like port over to the game. Like, again, going back to Luke's example of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, like Platinum exists as arguably like the definitive version of that gen of Pokemon games.
Yeah.
And they could have, if they wanted to make a remake, like a real remake, I guess, let's say, then they could have incorporated like all the Platinum content and just been like, this is the now definitive version. But they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably why you consider it more of a remaster in your mind, right?
Yeah, that's why I consider it more of a remaster.
And honestly, that's valid. So you know what? I take back what I said. I think I'm on your side now that I think about it more.
Yeah, like, but I would say my full definition of a remake would be something like Resident Evil 4, where it's like, okay, it follows the same basic story, but there are things that are inherently different about it that actually improve on the original. One of them being Ashley.
Yeah, they made Ashley a bearable character. They made Louise's character more fleshed out. They made Ada's story a little more fleshed out.
Yeah, because Louise in the original was kind of just someone who would just show up and be like, "Oh crap, I've left this behind. I've got to bail on you guys." Whereas in the remake, he's actually there until the final island.
Yeah. I just wanted Leon and fucking Louise to be happy gay couple, and then they still killed him off. I'm like, no.
Yeah. Well,
they had so much chemistry.
In every like in One Piece, Vex, in every reality, in every version of Resident Evil 4, Louise is destined to die by getting fisted in some way.
Yeah, and Aerith is destined to die no matter what as well, it seems like. But like there's so much like passion poured into some of these remakes. Like I genuinely feel like Capcom are masters of that with the
Yeah,
like classic remakes.
yeah, like you can tell, like people, like the people remaking Resident Evil 4 were passionate about it because they were like, okay, what didn't work about about it the first time? The bullet time effects. Like, okay, we're binning them to the dark side of the moon.
I mean, like, I wouldn't have minded if we had like the like statue chase bullshit or like some of the other stuff that like was in the original version. If they remake fucking 5, if they don't have the boulder punch in there, it's a failed remake. Um, that's just my 2 cents. But like, I would rather they spent time remaking Code Veronica than Resident Evil 5, in my opinion. If they were to continue on that,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
like Code Veronica, like control wise, has aged like shit. Um, and I would love if they like did a actual like remake of 1 as well instead of like just a remaster. But
yeah.
like,
That being said, I will say one thing that I do prefer from the original to the remake of Resident Evil 4 is the regenerators.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
I still don't understand why they gave the regenerators a dumpy, but I guess like monster fuckers rejoice.
yeah.
Um,
I think they just wanted to not make the regenerators scary, but that's the whole point of them. They're meant to be scary, like just the with that music as well.
yeah, like the fact they got rid of like the original sound cues kind of bothered me, but
Hmm.
it's whatever. We have like some hacking news that we can talk about briefly here because like it's kind of come and gone.
Just before we move off the remake, I just want, as this resident Sonic fanboy, there is a Sonic X Shadow game coming out near the end of the year, and
Oh,
we've been debating this exact question with that game because, like, when we're looking at the footage, it's like, okay, this is probably like a remaster of the game, but then people are like, no, it actually looks like it might just be a straight up port, possibly with like additional content they're adding, which
but
itself is based off of like a
but
previous engine.
let let's be honest, Party Jams. It's just for the way for the Sonic fans to have their shit between Sonic and Shadow.
You know, there is the fun
The fact that
conspiracy
you
theory
said
we've had in the fan base.
The fact that you said Sonic X Shadow, I was just like, okay, it's an awful joke, but I love it.
No, no, but there's like an actual thing where the fans are like, Sega picked this title specifically so that when people Google Sonic X Shadow, they will just see this game and not all the horrendous fan art that has been drawn over the years. So, yeah. Okay,
Sega,
but
you can try all you want. There's always going to be ships out for every character ever. You can try all you want to hide it.
even the most inappropriate ships that should not exist.
Also,
Anyway,
definitely
Vex, you
don't.
said something.
Also, definitely the meme of like googling Knuckles inflation. Don't ever do that. Anyway,
Hacking
uh,
news. Well, who got hacked this time?
there was the remote code execution going around during the Apex tournament, and a lot of people thought like Easy Anti Cheat got fully compromised. So there was like a full list of like every game that ever has used Easy Anti Cheat floating around. Like, don't use these until we know if it's Easy Anti Cheat that got hacked, or if it was just Apex, or if it was just like a one-off like event thing that somebody just did from like the crowd there. And as somebody that plays a lot of games that have easy anti-cheat in it, it's shocking how many games actually have that. Even some that shouldn't really theoretically have that kernel level anti-cheat. There's a lot. Like everything from Valorant to like Master Chief Collection to Apex to Fortnite to Elden Ring to like a bunch of games. Sea of Thieves, like all of these like use easy anti-cheat. So there was a valid concern like, is there anything I can really play for a little bit? But it turns out like easy anti-cheat wasn't the issue. It was I guess delegated specifically towards Apex. But even Respawn put out like a little press thing. On Sunday, a few professional Apex Legends players' accounts were hacked during an ALGS event. Games and player security are our highest priorities, which is why we paused the competition to address the issue immediately. Our teams have deployed the first of a layered series of updates to protect the Apex Legends players community and to create a secure experience for everyone. Um, and this was clowned on heavily because there has been like a bot slash hacking issue for ages in the Apex community, apparently, to the point where like people were dropping full on clips from their matches in the comments of this tweet of like, well, what about this, where like a dude just spawns like 100 bots into the lobby to kill people. And I'm like, wow, I really did not know it was this bad until I looked through that, and I'm like, damn, I'm glad I don't really play this game. Because it's laughably bad how bad some of these servers in matches went. But the specific type of hack that was going around there can compromise like your entire system. Speaking from like an IT perspective, it was a legitimate risk, and I am glad that they actually are looking into this, allegedly, even if they're not the best at handling their stuff, because this would lead to like a massive class action lawsuit potentially. This could lead to like dwindling player base, and I I genuinely was shocked when I saw what was going on screen there, because I'm not somebody that really follows a lot of esports either, but I was morbidly curious, and it was bad. Um, and the fact that it happened during a live event where you would think they were monitoring those specific servers heavily, since they're like live streaming this, was shocking to me. So yeah, that was bad. At least it's not like the full on easy anti cheat, and we can have like a debate on like the need for kernel level security or anti cheat software till we're blue in the face.
I
But
mean, yeah, like we've had that conversation with like Denuvo in like the Sonic community, because all it does is just like slow down the game and then not stop people from pirating it anyway. So
yeah, and like easy anti cheat isn't like the most robust, I guess, in like all of its features. Um, from what I have
yeah, I
understood.
wouldn't imagine it to be, especially like these really commonly used ones. Of course, people are going to be able to like get around it.
Yeah, especially like
So
things like, well, I don't think Activision uses it. I'm not 100% on that. I don't want to scroll through like the fucking 20-page list of every game that uses it either. But like the fact that there's even like mods that you can throw into Fortnite, to where like you can have like lewd skins and everything as well. Because I know a friend that had one, and I'm like, why though? Like there's no need for this. Like I love my anime titties as much as the next person, but why do you have this other than funny haha moment? And it's like, yeah, that's why. I guess it's the same way with like the modded like Black Ops maps where like you can run around as like Peter Griffin, or like Left 4 Dead has like similar things in like the Steam Workshop where you can have like Hatsune Miku and shit. And I'm just like, okay, this is cool, but like, why though?
I think it's just for like, I can see it for like maybe one fun playthrough, not even a full playthrough though, because I feel like it gets old real quick.
Yeah.
At least I would think.
Like there's like modded maps and like Black Ops that I watched people play, like the goons, they played through like one where they were in like an Arby's, and I'm like, okay, this is funny and everything, and they're running around and there's like stupid skins. I'm like, this is funny, but like, why? But like, I guess for specifically like those types of content creators, it's funny, but because they're like solely based on like comedic moments versus like actually taking the game seriously. But yeah, it's just a thing that exists, and if it can be exploited to that regard, I figure like anything's possible. And like in the world of like hacking and IT, like literally anything's possible. But it was like a big event that happened. Um, we have Remedy getting fully funded by Rockstar Games for their Max Payne 1 and 2 remake, which is a really cool one that I wasn't actually
Yep.
expecting. I really didn't expect them to cooperate fully, but I get that they kind of want to because it's their game as well, because they helped with it. And they also like own the sole rights, I think, to Max Payne 3 is why it wasn't originally like in this bundle. Um, but like, let's be honest here, this is solely funded by just profits from GTA 5.
Yeah. And speaking of GTA, like I'm hearing rumors that even 6 is likely going to get delayed, which I'm kind of expecting because, like, when you look at even the trailer of the game, it's like there's no way this is ready anytime soon.
Yeah.
Like this, I genuinely could not give less of a fuck about GTA 6. Like GTA 5 ruined GTA for me, and it solely was based around like the shark card monetization and like the FOMO that came with it, and the fact that if you go into any public lobby, it's like fully modded, and it's just a risk of getting your account banned, even if you're not using a mod, right? Uh, like I spawned in. Well, backstory here. Like early days of the channel, like we had a friend who would pop in the videos like really early on, Chris, and he came up here for a concert that we like wanted to take him to because it was one of his favorite bands. And during the time there, we filmed a bunch of Smash Wii U videos that are like archive playlists on the channel. And then we tried to film some shit inside of GTA 5, and the minute we got into the lobby, it was full of hackers. And it solely could be because it was an Xbox lobby. That could, be because it's just like fucking the fact that it was, GTA, and that's like the entire state of things. So none of that ever saw the light of day, really. Fast forward a few years, I bought it on PC, tried to play it, and I had the same experience. And then for that, I'm just like, I'm done. Like, I genuinely don't care about GTA anymore. And it's realistically apparently the same thing for like Red Dead Redemption 2 online and like all of this shit on their like multiplayer side, and that's where they're going to focus a lot of it on because they realize that's where the bag's at. And I'm like, even from a story perspective, I just don't care anymore. Like I've fully fallen out of love with GTA.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I was never really invested in the series, but I know it's popular, so I figured I'd bring it up.
But I do feel bad for the people that are looking forward to it as content creators, because like that is a big thing for a lot of people. But there is something to be said about letting something cook before letting it out, because like if GTA is going to be as successful as GTA 5, GTA 6 is going to be as successful as GTA 5, there needs to be a lot of the love and care put into it versus the like just rushing it out the door. Because I remember there was a lot of backlash back in the day for GTA 5 because it didn't launch with the online mode that was promised. So I'm hoping that when it comes out, it's to its fullest potential. There is.
Well, we can only hope because nowadays games come out kind of half baked till they're fixed.
That is true. Yeah,
but we also know that it is possible to get away with that because even just look at Cyberpunk. I think we talked about in a previous podcast.
Yeah,
comes out a mess, gets refunded, is just gains insane popularity after the anime.
Yeah, and it is like a totally different game now, and it is very much a playable, enjoyable experience. And I definitely recommend people go through it now. We only got a few more topics here, and then we'll be fully caught up before my little break. Shinji Mikami has established Kamui Inc. after leaving Tango Gameworks. He's also like, I guess, helping with the Shadows of the Damned Hella remastered port, which I did not know he was working on that. And I thought I was following the Shadows of the Damned project pretty closely, but guess not. Shinji Mikami is like a very important figurehead in the horror industry, so I'm looking very much forward to what he's working on now.
Wasn't he the one that created Resident Evil?
Mm-hmm. And Evil Within as well.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you've never played Evil Within, please do. And also prepare.
Is it on Steam?
It is. That's where
All right.
I recently bought it on Steam. And I was doing like an annual like do a level on Halloween thing for a while, and then I stopped doing that because I just wanted to enjoy the game. Because it's very fun. The number 2 is not as good, from what I've heard, but I feel like it's definitely worth experiencing both of them.
All right.
And you can usually get them for like $10-15 on deep discount.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah. I'm
game's
looking at
pretty
it right
old at this
now.
point, so you can get good sales.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, okay, great. And then I think the next one was about Larian. They're moving away from D&D.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I said in our server, and I'll say now is good for them, frankly, because like number one, I'm sure they want to do other stuff as developers. After having worked on like this game for all this time, it's like, man, we did a good job, but I'm tired of D&D.
Well, it's not only that they're tired of D&D, it was also a bit of the fact that everybody that worked on
Wizards
Baldur's
is building
Gate,
stuff.
that with them also got laid off. And they saw like how Hasbro / Wizards of the Coast were handling the IP moving forward and incorporating AI into it potentially, and they don't want to touch that. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, okay, massive fucking respect there. But also there's an interesting side effect of that they were working on DLC for a little bit, and I guess they scrapped it because they just didn't feel it. And I feel like more developers should do that. Because
Yeah,
if
at least if
you're
it's not been promised beforehand, because DLC should, in theory, be post. Like we finished the game, now we can make more stuff later. And if it's that, then you know it falling through is fine.
Mhm.
But if you promise it beforehand, then it's like, well, just put it in the base game. What are you doing?
I feel like they had promised to work on like expanding bits and pieces. I'm not as closely in tune with the Baldur's Gate franchise as say like Ann Arbor on that side of things, but like I feel like they did promise it after launch, and then they just didn't feel the passion for it after everything that had happened. And
Okay. Well, whatever. They got their success, and I still wouldn't be that upset about it because I think the game was still stands really well on its own.
yeah,
So
I guess it was just mainly to tie up like loose ends and everything. I feel like they could do that through the cinematics that they're talking about as well as like final post-launch content, kind of like Cyberpunk did, like end of game like quality of life stuff for 2.0 before they started moving fully onto Project Orion, which is Cyberpunk 2. And like, if it's just like that, then cool. Um, but also like I really wonder what they're going to be working on next, because Larian is really in tune with like the classical RPG side of things, like Divinity, Baldur's Gate 3, and like what would be next for them? Or would they step away from the CRPG limelight and try something different? That's a major risk.
I
Or
feel
would
like it probably would still be just like another CRPG, but I think they would just try their own kind of CRPG.
yeah.
Is my guess.
And I mean, Divinity is
Because I
like
mean, I really
their
don't see them being like, okay, how about we make a first-person shooter?
stranger things have happened in the industry though.
Yeah, so
But like Divinity is like solely their IP from my knowledge, so like they could just return to that and make original
yeah,
Sin 3.
that would be a safe investment.
Which like it would be like a quick return on investment too for them, especially after like a massive success, and then they could take like a more risky approach to their next project. Um and then Suyu was the other Switch emulator that got the hit with the DMCA
Yeah,
strike.
I think we brought that up in our earlier
Yeah.
discussion. So
Yeah, we
Yeah, I just
did.
didn't. Can't remember the name of it.
yeah, me neither. I remember it started with an S. I could have scrolled down further, but yeah, too.
But like, I think this is the last couple topics actually. Um,
Yeah,
so Nick from Second Wind, formerly of the Escapists, was talking about Kotaku's like end of life essentially. Because they're shifting away from like their regular topic based style, and now I guess they're forcing people to make like, I guess, walkthroughs, which that's what YouTube's for at this point. I feel like.
Yeah, practically. I mean, I remember back in the day, I would love to like read walkthroughs, and I will every now and then, like just scroll through like an IGN post for like a game that they might have
Yeah,
already just done.
or
But
sorry,
yeah,
sorry
good.
to cut you off. I was just gonna say like, or just be like, hey, how do you get to this certain area in this certain game?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
and
like
then usually the Reddit answer.
yeah, I feel like there was a massive like the yellow paint scenario came to play in Final Fantasy Rebirth. Like even I got lost in that portion, and I'm like, okay, what the fuck am I doing wrong? I'm like, oh, I'm just a dumbass. I was like 2 feet from it. I'm like, okay, cool. And then
Yeah.
I
And I mean, I think we had the yellow paint discussion,
mhm.
right, last time?
Yeah, but I was
Yeah,
just
that was
bringing
a
that
good one.
up. Like that's a merit for a walkthrough, right? For me, like I also use it to try and like optimize for a couple of the like side games in Rebirth. I'm like, okay, let's pop this up. When I was playing through Remaster on PC, I'm like, okay, let me figure out the quickest way to get everything done on this so I can just refresh my brain before Rebirth as well. I know my partner's using it to outside of like the the like spreadsheet thing, like certain missable things that they're like I want to actually collect all the things I can because it just works better that way, and that's the type of gamer they are. But like for the most part, like I feel like YouTube is like the go-to for that, so I don't see what the Kotaku's brain is like here. I feel like it's just another overstep in this company's stupid decision book. Uh,
Yeah, they were never my favorite publishers. I usually don't trust anything they post, but at the same time, I think as the original tweet that you link says, that, this is just them trying to survive. And I mean, I don't really have like the biggest, love for games journalism as a whole, but I can at least respect people's jobs trying to be preserved.
yeah, I don't feel like this is going to preserve jobs at all, though. I feel like this is just like corporations getting involved in shit that they shouldn't be involved in and leading to like further downfall. IGN has like their own issues. I saw like them meddling with like even union employees now that they're unionized and that they're trying to work with like either preserving their jobs or get them a good severance package. But like I don't really have the biggest love for games journalism either, because it is extremely biased either one way or the other, and I feel like there's like really no neutrality. That's why I try to play like the middle ground even in these videos, because like I realize the idiocy in trying to play one side against the other because you just alienate your audience to that regard. But like in an industry that is extremely toxic, I also understand for like wanting to like I don't want this type of gamer coming to view my content either, if that makes sense. But like realistically, Kotaku has been like the source of a lot of rage baiting in general. So it's kind of funny to see them getting a little bit of comeuppance in that regard, but I don't want more people out of jobs either. Um, and then the other one that made me question my sanity as a Square fan is Hajime Tabata saying developers should be open to the usage of generative AI. And people already
As
hate.
Square fans, we keep losing every day. It's almost like, man, if you guys didn't own all the IPs that I love, I would just cut you off so fast.
And like this is a company that has tried to incorporate blockchain technology, has tried to incorporate NFTs into their products. Like
Okay, okay. Hajime. So do you want to use AI to preserve all the old games?
don't give them any fucking ideas, Luke.
Yeah, really. They're
Nah.
listening to us this many hours into our podcast.
Yeah, they're listening 3 hours into the podcast specs.
Like no, but like genuinely, like Square does not need any more stupid ideas to be thrown at them because they are the type of company that would try to do that. Like
Somehow.
legitimately, like I'm shocked that they haven't tried to do that. Like when they did like the pixel remasters for the old like Final Fantasies. Yeah, I'm shocked they didn't try to just like have an AI do that for them, considering like the games were like
I bet they would if they had the idea at this point in time.
considering those games are literally megabytes in size. I'm shocked that they didn't try to just run them through an AI and then have them translate it that way and everything. But like it's people already clown on 15 enough, and this is just giving people more of a reason to hate 15. And I agree, like 15 is the most ridiculously over convoluted approach to a Final Fantasy game ever. Between like literally novels and an anime and a tie-in movie and like all the other stupid shit that they did, and that
I've seen most of that stuff.
and a Chinese exclusive MMO that they were trying to launch, and they stopped trying to launch it because of the crackdown on like gacha style stuff there. It's legitimately something that should not shock me seeing, but it still did.
Yeah, maybe you could use AI to come up with a better tale than Final Fantasy because of the fact that it's the 15th one. It's like not really final anymore.
Well, I mean, it was
just the brand at this point.
It was originally meant as like a swan song for Square, and then it became successful and it revitalized the company, and then now fucking 16 plus titles, and they've just decided to keep that because people recognize the name.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the spin-offs like the Bravely Default series, or the Bravely series, I guess I should say, the first game that they made was called in Japan Flying Fairy, Bravely Default Flying Fairy, and the FF of that is purely because of it's a Final Fantasy spin-off, and also because of story reasons I won't get into.
Yeah.
But yeah, they just have the brand of Final Fantasy basically.
Yeah.
I mean, like Kingdom Hearts could drop the title of Kingdom Hearts if they wanted to at some point too, but they won't.
I mean, yeah, they could just call themselves like KH.
Yeah, or like overly convoluted story.
That's going to get even more overly convoluted when they start adding in Marvel and Star Wars characters.
Listen, as much as I love that idea, I really would like them to fucking focus on like unraveling some of the actual in-world story before adding in another 87 different worlds. Like there's a lot of
you're asking a lot. Kingdom Hearts resolving storylines. I didn't even like finish I don't really play the games. I just watch them online because I'm not doing all that. But and also because Epic Games is the only way I could theoretically do it, and I'm definitely not doing that. But with Kingdom Hearts, like they also have like 4 coming out, and I'm thinking to myself, like I still have to get through like 3 and figure out what's going on with all that.
There's more questions than answers as usual. But like with the Quadratum stuff, where like you're in a seemingly like normal human world again, like I feel like it would be a perfect time to tackle some of like Sora's actual story, and the other character's real like life story. But I realize we're going to be visiting like 85 more fucking Disney worlds. Realistically, though, of which I don't think we have a lot of worlds that we haven't experienced in some capacity.
I mean, it's Disney. They've bought so many things probably since then that they could just incorporate new things.
Sora gets vored by a xenomorph. Why not?
Honestly, they could probably just do that.
I mean, they own Fox at this point. There's literally nothing stopping them.
Yeah, Sora gets vored by a xenomorph, and then Homer Simpson comes in and eats the xenomorph.
I mean, they could do that. Like Peter Griffin could pop in as a companion and beat the shit out of a xenomorph like he does Ernie the chicken. Why not? Like there is so much that they could do in that regard with like the outside IP that is interesting, but at the same time, how much of it would be them dropping an E rating, and that's where
I feel like it could theoretically be done. I don't know, because Lego had like how many like crazy things in their crossovers. They had to buy the rights for a lot of that IP.
Yeah, I mean, like
so,
we have
I'm
Lego.
Just saying.
We have Lego Fortnite at this point. Like anything is possible. So like, why not just drop it to like a T rating and allow like a more mature theme throughout? But at the same time, like Disney probably wouldn't want to market something like that, and Disney is still like a big proponent of the Kingdom Hearts universe. So it just comes down to like where they want to draw their line. But then again, like Disney is okay with having a hard R-rated Deadpool movie, so why
Well,
Yeah,
not?
and they're
let's
counting on
let's
it to
just
save their
let's
whole
just wait to
universe.
see how hard are it's gonna be Fex.
Well, I mean, it's definitely going to be one type of hard R and not the other type of hard R, obviously. But like, I feel like we're not going to get something like Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, like a lot of people are theorizing.
Oh, they're not. We're not gonna get that where he goes back in time with Wolverine to destroy the MCU.
Like
I mean, I don't see why not at this point. The universe is dying anyway. This could be their reset.
like the rumor is like it's going to be like a soft reset of the universe because like in this universe, if a character dies in their universe, that universe dies. But realistically, we've watched like characters die in the main canon of the MCU, and that universe is technically fine. Looking at you, fucking like Tom Holland, Peter Parker, for example, and they want him to be the linchpin of the universe, but he technically died in the original MCU, but was brought back. So even their new potential lore doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it really doesn't. But I've given
So
up.
it's just like any other game.
Yeah, like literally. It's like why are we trying to rewrite the rules to a universe that already has rules just to try and save face? Whereas like it would be easier for them to replay like Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, but instead he goes back and kills like the Fox universe and he kills like the Sony universe, and then that is what brings them all into the main MCU, and it would just be a safe bet for everyone.
Yeah, that actually would be a way better idea than what they're probably planning.
Hey
But at the
Marvel,
same time, I'm looking forward to Deadpool.
Marvel, pay me. I'll write you a better script than you're writing. But it
But
isn't
there
hard
was
at this
one
part.
other. It, but there's one other topic I did want to talk about that I thought I put on the list, and that was about like the whole Sweet Baby thing that was going around.
Oh,
Because
okay.
when
I'm
I
glad we saved the
first heard
fun.
about it, I genuinely thought it was like, okay, is this even like a thing to be concerned about? I don't know. I'll just keep it in the back of my mind. But since then, it really blew up a lot.
It's turned into Gamergate 2.0, and I have a very, very, very hot take on it, and it's like, I don't give a shit. Like, consulting firms exist for a reason, and it is mainly to allow a more natural integration of that type of character to be told, right? So, say you have a team of 95 white people playing, wanting to bring in a black character. They could go to a consulting firm and talk about, like, okay, would this character say or do these things? And then that is their job. They cannot force you to write a character like that. They just sit there to specifically tell you the character will say or do these things, or that is not the type of clothing that they would wear in the context of what you're trying to write. Looking to like let's use Spider-Man 2 for an example, because that's one of them that was floating around, right? Because it was a predominantly white team making the Spider-Man 2, they wanted to like talk about specifics of like the characters' mannerisms in Brooklyn and stuff like that. And my basic knowledge of this, because I kind of tuned the fuck out of it the second I saw people like the Quartering talking about it. I'm like, okay, so it's just become right wing grift. As does almost anything that has to do with a person of color or an LGBT character being involved in any kind of capacity in gaming. Um, so I just start tuning these topics out. But like, they wanted to integrate like more of the culture of like Puerto Rican aspects of Miles Morales into it, and more of the characterizations of like a black person in like Harlem, and make it sound and act more natural. We're not going to talk about the Killmonger hairstyle. We're not going to talk about like the fact that he was a walking advertisement for Adidas, because those were choices. But like the whole logic to it was to make the character more natural for the setting. I know a lot of the grift is talking about like stuff like Saga from Alan Wake 2, Agraboda from God of War, a couple of other things there. And to the point where like there's a Steam group that tells you if Sweet Baby Inc. has worked on a game or not, or if a game is woke or not, based solely on like DEI aspects. And I'm just over here like, do you even enjoy your fucking hobby anymore, or has this solely become a way for you to be hateful?
It's solely become a way for people to be hateful nowadays, Vex.
Like, I would, as a trans person, I would love for more natural trans inclusion in games instead of like the default that we see in stuff like Overwatch or like Valorant. Like Valorant has another femme presenting NB female, or an NB character, I should say. And they've never really had like a more mask presenting character on the non-binary side of things, to what I've seen in like really any game, because like the default for a lot of people when they see that is like a more feminine androgynous character. That's how people view non-binary people. So we don't see things like that ever really become a thing. We really don't see a lot of trans mask characters, for example. And it's shocking that we've not seen that, even though that's a proponent of like that community. That's why consulting firms like Sweet Baby Inc. actually exist, is to allow inclusion in that capacity and how to write and tell stories based around that and based on lived experiences. But I do see that there is like an overcorrection in like the gaming industry, to the point where like we don't want to offend anybody, but at the same time we're alienating everybody. I do agree with that aspect of things, because there is no need to have like 95 of the same type of character in a game when there are other, types of people in the world, right? There are white people, there are black people, there are Puerto Rican people, there are like all of these different nationalities and demographics. There is more than just default femme presenting non-binary person or trans femme characters. I feel like Siege has done a remarkable job in having like a diverse roster of like queer characters, whereas a lot of other games have failed in that capacity. And that's a fucking bro shooter at the end of the day. And it's done a better job than a lot of these. I cannot believe I'm praising Ubisoft in some capacity after shitting on them for so long in this podcast. But they actually went out and made a diverse roster of queer characters in that regard. But like I did see a lot of it for the first little bit, and I just kind of tuned out. If you guys have any thoughts on Sweet Baby Inc. as well.
Not really.
Okay, so for me, like what captured my interest to begin with was not the fact that like such a group existed, because like that by itself was kind of funny, but it was just like something someone found. It's like, oh, this one company worked on like a lot of major games, which I thought was just kind of interesting in and of itself. It was just like some Brazilian dev. But then like because of that, there was sort of like a counter reaction to it, which was probably what made everything worse. Because if it just existed in and of itself, I think it wouldn't have been a big deal. But because there were people who wanted like the group removed or like the person like blocked on media, that's when people felt like there was just some kind of grand conspiracy of sorts for these kinds of things to exist. And so I will also, I guess, put like some of the blame on like how people reacted to this, because like, much like the way that these consulting groups can't force devs to like make anything, it's up to them and their vision for what they want to make. It's also not going to be a Steam group that will force anybody to buy or not buy a game. That's just a consumer choice. And I think, I think in that way, like the existence of a group where it's like, hey, if you're not into this kind of thing, these are the kind of like company, or these are the kind of projects that this consulting group has worked on before. Much like the same way that, on the more political side, like people have been looking at which corporations are on what side of what political issue. And, based on that, they will decide to boycott said business practice for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I thought of like the Sweet Baby group much in that capacity to begin with, where it's like, okay, this is just like providing information to a consumer base. And, the fact that it blew up also does indicate that there exists a fair number of people who aren't very happy with like a lot of forced inclusion from their perspective. But I guess from my perspective, for a lot of the discussion I was hearing, people are saying it's like, oh, it's because of this that games are not good nowadays. I'm thinking to myself, like, what games are you playing? Because I'm having a great time, all things considered.
Well,
And so I just think that, for a lot of people, I think it's just that as they get older, the games that they've enjoyed aren't the kind of games that are either around anymore, or they just aren't as invested in looking for those types of games, because like as the indie scene grows, like people of the same generation will try to produce those kinds of games if you try to look for, find them and support them. Instead, people are just like looking at like what's the big game everyone's talking about, and then of course those games, because they're trying to go for a more modern approach, will try to incorporate more diversity, more complex topics and issues.
mhm.
And because of that, they will need the help of consulting groups like this. So there's a bit of blame on both sides. I think this is the kind of thing that shouldn't have blown up, which is why I kind of kept it on like the back burner of topics. Because like ideally, it would have just been like, oh, hey, this weird thing just kind of happened, versus the Gamergate 2.0 that we ended up having.
Yeah, well, here's like, because I did like a little bit of digging while I was like trying to figure out if we want to talk about this topic in general too. Um, as little as I was invested in it, I did like watch it happen on Twitter, because I still somehow like don't exist solely on music Twitter, even though like I figured that should be like the majority of my algorithm. I was seeing people like Boogie and a bunch of other like grifters talking about it, to the point where like somebody had retweeted. Um, and this was like the first thing that popped up on my Twitter one day when I opened it, and I just dug through that thread, and that was like the vast majority of my studying on this topic. Um, the and it was solely because I was going to shut this topic down if it became too toxic, but I feel like it's kind of like blown over most of it as well. Uh, just because I don't want to deal with like the hate that side of things brings, but I also do kind of welcome it in that regard, because I fucking love trolling people back, as you can tell by how often I'm banned on Twitter. Uh, but like the whole logic of like it was boiling down to like every game makes white man bad, and so in that I believe it was I forget the creator's name. I feel bad, but it was one of the prominent black YouTubers, Mighty Keith, I believe. Said, "Show me a game where the white person is the villain," and they dug through the entirety of Steam and found a game where like you're basically in the colonization of America era, and like see white man bad, and it's one game where you're I guess play. I didn't look at the Steam page for it or anything. It is like I guess you're during like the colonial era of America where you're defending your homeland, and I'm like, you had to dig that far to find one example of the entire argument that you are
Yeah,
basing everything on.
where
One fucking game in the entirety of the literal billions of titles on Steam.
yeah.
One game.
Whereas I can look to two games that have a white man as the villain and a black guy as the villain. Resident Evil 5, Albert Wesker, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Officer Tenpenny.
Right. But like the fact that they were that committed to the bit to shove their grift is what made me think like, okay, this is like a viable topic of just sheer racism and hatred. And that's what really turned me off of like a lot of like the whole argument, to an extent, of bothering to do any more research, because if they had to dig that far there, I know for a fact that this was solely another like Gamergate I've run out of ad revenue thing that these people were trying to find a new topic to bitch about, because like the MCU is another topic that these creators talk about, and like the MCU grift is basically over because people are sick of hearing it. The Star Wars is woke grift will probably come back around again because of Acolyte, but like they needed something to talk about at the time, and this was their
Yeah,
performative bullshit.
Well, thanks. If they don't have anything to bitch and moan about, then the whole gimmick falls apart.
Right. And for me, like, there has been 40 some years worth of, like, there only being a white playable character. The fact that a little black kid can actually sit down and play Miles Morales in, like, the new Spider-Man game and have some representation in that makes me happy. You know, the fact that somebody that's queer can sit down and play a Life is Strange game that they can resonate with makes me happy. But the fact that, like, every game on the planet isn't solely a white person now is what really kind of, made these 40-year-old chuds get their panties in a britch.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like that has not been happening like the last 10 years. I mean, look at again, I'm going to go back to it again, but Guild Wars 2, where you have like different races that you can customize, make whatever color or creed you want.
Mm-hmm. Baldur's Gate 3, you can play as a fucking, like, GIF,
yeah,
and then get fucked by a bear. Like, there is literally limitless shit in the gaming world.
Yeah, you can literally play as a tree in Guild Wars 2.
Right. Like, there is so much in the universe. And these are the same chuds that will sit down and say, like, fucking Metal Gear isn't political, or that the entire plot of, like, of fucking BioShock isn't political.
Oh
or
my god!
Fallout is an apolitical game.
Did they just say Metal Gear is not political?
These people genuinely do not believe.
What is the title of Metal Gear Solid 4? What is the subtitle?
Guns of the Patriots.
That is the most political title I have ever seen.
Fallout opens with war. War never changes. How is war as a concept not political, right? That's like the side of the internet that these people exist on, though. They genuinely believe that the video games have never been politicized.
Like, literally, isn't the kernel in Metal Gear Solid 2 meant to be like an AI representation of the Patriots?
I don't know Metal Gear lore, like, at all, so I can't really weigh in too deeply into that. I've played the games, but, like, I don't sit here and overanalyze every aspect of it.
It's the same kind of people who say One Piece isn't political when it literally has a revolutionary army trying to take down a world government.
Yeah. See, for me, like, I just saw the grifts pretty, basic, and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, we're going to have, like, 4 years of this circulating because people don't like the fact that diversity exists in video games. And it's the same thing as, like, the whole male gaze joke that went around that started Gamergate 1. I'm like, we really don't need this, especially right now when the game industry is fucking in shambles job-wise. But we're going to have it, and it's going to, cause more and more controversy. But realistically, it might be a cleansing flame to allow, like, certain people to filter out of gaming entirely. Could you imagine a world where you don't see a lot of these, like, fucking chuds on the right playing video games anymore because they've become too woke for them? Like, imagine a world where Elon Musk isn't sitting there and talking about cyberpunk, which, again, very political in its concepts, but he doesn't see it.
I am waiting. I am honestly so waiting for South Park to do like a recreation of the Mr. Hanky the Christmas Poo episode where instead of that it's talking about people thinking that everything's gone too woke, that they want to make a game, that they want to make their own like game or something, and then it ends up being a piece of crap.
I mean, that could be how Mr. Hanky comes back. Like, he is the anti-woke piece of crap, and then it's just literally a talk about how, like, anti-wokeness is bullshit. They could do a whole fucking commentary on that, but I doubt that they will because they've went to the, like, overarching storyline things. But, like,
well, it could be an overarching storyline.
It could. Remember, like, they had Red Dead Redemption 2 as, like, a minor plot during the Integrity seasons. So, I mean, they could go back with that. But I find it funny, like that nobody talked about the fact that you can go around in Red Dead Redemption 2 and just tie up and kill like the KKK. But I guess like the vast majority of the people that are pissed about wokeness in video games probably would side with the KKK. And with that, I think we talked ourselves into a corner, and I'm probably going to get death threats on Twitter now. So with that,
let it come, and then we'll just refer back to that One Piece panel that you brought up, Vex.
Oh God, yeah, that would be funny. But I'll probably be on like a social media break while I'm away for the most part. I might see some stuff, but it'll be fun to come back in a couple weeks and film another video with you guys. I know you were talking about doing some Ruby Dragon stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys can also come up with some other content that I can schedule with the limited internet access I'll have while I'm out.
Yeah, well, I'll think of something.
Yeah, because like I said, this week is also not super good for me.
Yeah,
so we'll
and tomorrow I'm busy doing something that came up over the weekend.
Yeah, I gotta.
Okay, so that's just what life is.
Yeah, I know. I gotta squeak out a Chainsaw Man review tomorrow, and then I am done making content for a while. So, until the next time, peace, everyone.
Peace.